And welcome back to yet another Fridays with Mrs. Ginny. I am your host, Mrs. Ginny. Friends, this is interesting because this is our first, a viewer recommended stream. Because normally I come up with the ideas for the streams, and that's what I talk about. But if you're a regular viewer and you look in the comments, then you know that this has been a highly recommended or requested stream. All right, friends, as a Christian, I live to serve. And so when EAE asked me to do a stream on aliens, who was I to deny him? And so I see him in here. Good to have you. Very, very glad that you're here. But I've also heard from other people like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And I now agree because in the spirit of full transparency, I really wasn't that excited for this stream because aliens have never been a thing that really excited me. I don't know, different strokes for different folks. It just never was a topic that really sparked my interest and made me really want to do research into it. And so I had just come to the conclusion that, okay, well, aliens aren't real. They, whatever people think that they're seeing, they're just seeing demons, and that's all that there is. That's just the end of it. It's not a whole lot to talk about, honestly. I mean, that's how I felt. However, in my studies this week, it turns out that the question is a little bit deeper than I actually realized. And so if you're from the Baptist side, this is not me coming out of the alien closet saying that, live long and prosper or anything. However, I feel like there is more to this than I originally thought. And so it is kind of interesting to see exactly what the Bible says and how we can piece together because, spoiler alert, the Bible is not explicit about extraterrestrial creatures and beings, okay? I feel like you can get an idea of what it's saying and the message is trying to get across, but to say be dogmatic about no, there are no outside, beings, and yes, there are 100% outside beings. I feel like you can really draw that conclusion from the King James Bible. And so we're going to talk about that. I'm actually going to drop the link pretty soon because, this is something that I want us to be able to discuss and go back and forth with. And so I have a video that we're going to review. I have some notes here. And friend, let's get into it. Because this turned out to be actually a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. And so I feel like to start off, no matter what side of the debate you're on, we have to start off with the question of what are aliens? Because I saw Josh, he already posed the very good question in the comments saying that this term alien had best have a clear definition. Don't forget that God would be classified as an alien. And that is not crazy, strictly by the definition of, being an extraterrestrial, someone who's not from our, solar system or our galaxy or something like that, that would be an accurate description to say that, what exactly does that mean? So we got to define our terms. So thank you, Josh. And so would aliens be classified as humanoid? Are they human-like? Are they humans? I don't think anybody would say that they're humans, but are they human-like? Would they be considered beasts? So would they fall under the animal category? Because humans are not animals. Okay, so they're in different categories already. But are aliens animals? Are they, because it's and then another thing that we need to define is what does it mean to be alive? Okay, this is not semantics. This is very important because if we're going to talk about this, then we gotta figure out exactly what we're saying. To say that they're alive and it's intelligent life out there. We have artificial intelligence now. So what exactly does that mean? So are they humanoid? Are they beasts? Are they, some type of evolved plant life? What are they? or are they spirits? And I saw a video from a new IFB pastor, Pastor Bruce Mejia. He did a video he did like a little short about aliens. And he said that aliens cannot be demons because you can see them, and you can't see demons because demons are spiritual. And I was like, okay, I can pick that up. And so that kind of debunked my initial assessment of, well, they have to be demons because they're not people, they're not like other creatures. And so, but when I looked at it a little bit further, I was reminded of the story in Acts 19 about a guy who, well, let me just pull it up. Okay. So no need for me to describe it to you when I can just show it to you. And now this verse does not say that this guy sees a demon, but it does say that he gets beat up by a demon. And so was he shadowboxing? Did he not know what was getting him? I mean, he knew because it was talking to him. So let's pull this up. Okay. And so here we have Acts chapter 19, which is just a very brief story. The story is only from 13 to 17. And it says, then certain of the vagabond Jews, exorcists, and so this is the only place in the Bible where the word exorcist is used. And it says, took upon them to call over them which had evil spirits. The name of the Lord Jesus, saying, we adjure you by Jesus whom Paul preached. And there was 7 sons of one Sceva, a Jew, and chief of the priests which did so. So 7 guys, are attempting this, exorcism. And then in verse 15, it says, and the evil spirit answered and said, Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are ye? I love this passage. I almost forgot about it. I'm so glad that I was reminded about it for tonight's stream. And in 16, it says, and the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them and overcame them and prevailed against them, so that they fled out that house naked and wounded. And this was known to all the Jews and Greeks also dwelling at Ephesus, and fear fell on all, and the name of the Lord Jesus was magnified. And so, yeah, we have an example here of a demon talking to people. And we get this a lot, where they're talking to people, but can they see them? Does it ever make the leap where they are seeing them? And so I couldn't find an example of a demon where the people could see the demon, even though they could hear them talking. I thought about the passage where Jesus cast out the 2,000 demons from the demoniac who was at the caves, the guy who was cutting himself and no man, no chains could hold him. I was thinking about that passage, and when the demons leave the man, Legion, when Legion leaves the man and goes into the pigs, did they see that? Or was it just like something that just happened, air moving, like wind, So did they see it? So that's the thing, is when does it make that bridge from just hearing him? Because we have a lot of instances of people hearing devils and spirits talking to people, but do they ever see them? And so I have I have a lot of examples of people seeing angels, though. So that's the thing that I thought was very interesting, is that we don't get any examples of people seeing evil spirits, but we get a lot of examples of people seeing holy, good spirits. I think you can call them holy spirits, because angels are holy. Are angels ever described as holy? Anyways, I guess that's for another stream. But good spirits, when oh man, who was that? I can't think of the guy's name, but the guy who's like riding on the donkey, and the donkey sees the angel, and so the donkey's not moving, so the guy beats the donkey, and then eventually the donkey talks to him, and then he sees the angel. Moses got to see the backside of God the Father. You know, Mary got to talk to Gabriel. I mean, so all over. I mean, Abraham talked to the angels and Jesus when he found out that he was going to have a son in his old age. So all throughout the Bible, we have people talking to, interacting, and physically seeing good spirits. But we get no examples of people seeing evil spirits. And so that I thought was very interesting. And so not only did the topic go from being like, oh, I don't know really how I'm going to be able to string this along for an hour, at least, and talk about this, to I got to break this up into two parts. Because when it comes to the discussion of aliens, this leads me to now question my idea and what I had initially thought about ghosts. Because I believe that whatever aliens are, ghosts are. Because of course, I don't believe in this idea that ghosts are the spirits of people who have died and they're unfulfilled, or they have unfinished business and then they're just kind of lingering and hanging out. So no. The Bible says that it is appointed unto every man once to die, and after this the judgment. The Bible says that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so as soon as you die, the instant you die, you either go to heaven or hell, and that's where you stay. Okay. And there's none of this just intermediary, like earthbound purgatory type stuff that, TV shows and movies talk about. Like, no. So, of course that is much more fine. That's much more hardline. Like, of course there's no such thing as that. But then what are they? And so I had just, once again, written it off as just, oh, demons playing with people, it's whatever. But we have no examples of people seeing demons. And so, yeah, like, let's say you walk into a haunted house, or you go somewhere where there's wickedness. You go into a house of a woman who practices witchcraft, because, the occult and witchcraft, those are people conjuring up evil spirits. Those are people that are trying to talk to them. And so the spirit realm is real, but how it exactly interacts with us, we don't fully know. And I think the Bible is intentionally vague on this topic because they don't want us to get too wrapped up into it. Why it's intentionally vague, we don't know. But I think that it is intentionally vague. People, they want to, write books and, do whole docuseries on, Christianity and ghosts and all this different stuff that the Bible does not really speak about in depth. And so it leaves a little bit up to the imagination. And so, yeah, I'm going to be actually doing another part of this, not next week, but come October, because, I like to do things that are themed. And so come October, that's spooky season. And so I'll be talking and debunking a lot of, ideas and talking about spooky things, for that season of time. And so, yeah, we'll revisit this in a few months. But yeah, so this research that I did, it not only flipped on its head my idea of aliens, but my idea of ghosts. Because I'm like, what are these things? And so I think it kind of boils down to three things. And I'm going to save those three things until the end of the stream. But yes, so as of right now, it went from being very open and shut to me to now being, okay, there's a possibility of three different options. And so, yeah. Let's see here. Oh, and then another example of somebody seeing a good spirit is the witch at Endor, who brings up Samuel. Okay, and so that was not a demon. She actually brought up Samuel. People will say that it wasn't Samuel, that, she was communicating with a devil or whatever. That's not what the Bible says. It says that it was Samuel. And so that is the only instance that we have of somebody who was dead in the spirit world talking to a person who's alive. Okay, so we have, we'll have dead people talking to other dead people, like the story of Lazarus and the rich man. or a person who was dead who gets temporarily resurrected, talking to alive people, like the Mountain of Transfiguration. But the witch at Endor is the only instance that I could think of where we have a situation where a person who is still dead in the spirit realm talking to somebody who is still alive. And so there was that. And I was like, man, this is interesting. And so before we get into our video of the night that we're going to review, I have another passage that I want to go to, which is 1 Corinthians 15, 39 through 40. Oh, right. And so this is a pretty common verse to go to when talking about this topic. Let's pull me back down. And it says here, 1 Corinthians 15, 39 through 40, all flesh is not the same flesh. Okay. But there's one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. But the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. And so with this passage, I find people using this to argue both sides. People will say that, this is the Bible saying how there are no aliens because it gives the classifications of things and aliens aren't in there. The verse 39 gives different classifications and there's no room for aliens in that. And then people will argue the literal opposite point by going to verse 40 and saying that, well, aliens are celestial bodies. And so therefore that is their, evidence that there's something out there. Where do I fall on this? I would say that I feel like it's to use the verse out of context to say that this is confirmation of aliens, or to say that celestial bodies is referring to little green men. Because my understanding of the passage, now one thing, like I said, I would not get dogmatic about this because I feel like it's intentionally vague, and so it's not worth breaking fellowship over. Okay, I have a friend who shall remain nameless, and he's a flat earther. Okay, and so I don't know if he would actually claim, admit to being a flat earther, but he's, he doesn't believe, he's not 100% convinced that the earth is round. And he and I are still friends. So, everything's not worth breaking up over. Everything's not worth breaking fellowship over. And so if a Christian did believe, that there were aliens, I don't see that as being a major issue. Because at the end of the day, what does that have to do with you reading your Bible and going soul winning and being a good Christian here on earth? Okay. But I would say that verse 40 is talking about like stars and planets and the things out in space, not aliens. I think that when it says that there are also celestial bodies, that's talking about like the other planets, the stars, shooting stars and the moon and black holes and the other galaxies, whole other solar systems that apparently, are out there. And then bodies terrestrial. And so I think that terrestrial bodies, would be like rivers and lakes and mountains and deserts and beaches and things like that. So that's my understanding of this. But, it's up for interpretation, I feel like. And so that's my understanding of this. And so to say that this is like a smoking gun for the pro-alien Christian, it leaves you have been weighed in the balance and you have been found wanting. Okay. Shout out to you if you know where that's from. But yeah, and so that's what I got to say about that. But friend, we got a video, okay? So, like I said, I don't really have a dog in this fight. I'm not going to get dogmatic about it one way or the other. But I want to be informed. I want to be, intelligent. And so being that whether or not aliens exist, I don't feel like it really matters a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. People want to get lost on these rabbit trails and all these, rabbit holes. But hey, the truth fears no scrutiny. So let me see. Let me show you guys what I got pulled up here. And so I YouTubed The best evidence for proving aliens exist. Friend, and this video has almost 9 million views, okay? Oh, wait, why isn't it showing up? Oh, there it is. And so I don't have anything, against any of this, okay? And so if they exist, then sure, hey, I'm all for it. If they don't exist, which I'm almost certain they don't, then, we'll just debunk all this and we'll have a good time and we'll just sit back and relax. And so, yes, friends, I am all about, and so this is a side note before we get into the video, but I was watching a video the other day, and it was like a anti-ex-Mormon stuff. Like, I was watching these two girls. They were both ex-Mormons, and they were like exposing the Mormon church and talking about how Mormonism is wicked, which of course I agree with. But sadly, when people come out of cults like that, they usually don't become Bible-believing Christians. They become atheists, and they become so turned off and repulsed by religion that they just end up not believing in any God, which is very unfortunate. And so these two ex-Mormon women that I was watching, they were saying how, one of the big things about Mormonism is that they lie to you and that they're always keeping things from you. And there's so many secrets, and they're not transparent, and that they're not upfront. And that it's always like you're never really getting the full story from people. And I don't want to be like that. And I feel like a lot of people feel like that about religion. And so I'm all about transparency. Buy the truth and sell it not. And, Jesus told the disciples that what I tell you in the ear, you tell on the housetops. And so, I'm not interested in hiding, if aliens are real, whatever, cool, then that's just how it is. I'm not interested in fighting reality. I'm a Christian, therefore I love reality because the Bible is true. And so we're going to watch this video, and we're going to see the most accurate, the best evidence. I mean, this was the top search result. So, and this video is almost an hour long. Okay. So surely in 50 minutes, they can prove at least beyond a reasonable doubt that there are aliens. And so if that's the case, then I'm all for it. All right. And so we're going to jump right into this. And I already dropped the link. So if anybody wants to come up here and go through this with me, then we can do that. But so let's jump right into this video, friends, and let's see what we could be missing.
What you're about to see is a former U.S. intelligence official in July 2023 testifying under oath regarding the U.S. government's interaction with unidentified extraterrestrial aircraft and their unusual pilots.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
No, your ears aren't deceiving you. United States Air Force officer and intelligence official David Grush, among other government officials, is genuinely claiming that we are not alone in the universe, and that, in fact, the U.S. government has been keeping the world in the dark about some truly crazy findings for years. Have extraterrestrials really been visiting and even spying on us for decades? Today, we'll be attempting to get to the bottom of that question. From mysterious snapshots of unexplainable flying objects to official government reports and a possible interview with an alien being, here's some of the best evidence we have proving aliens exist. This first story has been corroborated by multiple highly reliable military personnel, and is probably the most striking proof of alien life, or technology, visiting Earth. And that's why I'm going to explain it first and in depth. We even have the footage to prove it. It goes like this. A naval strike group, led by the U.S. aircraft carrier the USS Nimitz, was conducting pre-deployment exercises off the northwest coast of Mexico in late 2004. On the 10th of November, The USS Princeton picked up unusual radar signals near San Clemente Island. These signals didn't appear as any known aircraft and would randomly appear in groups of 5 to 10 at a time. The senior operator of the radar system had almost 2 decades of experience working with these systems and was an expert with this scientific system at the time of the incident, so he was puzzled as to what was going on. Suspecting a malfunction, the recently upgraded Spy 1 radar was switched off and recalibrated. To everyone's surprise, this only led the radar tracks to become even stronger. They observed firsthand how the targets performed physics-defying feats. For example, the objects moved too fast to be birds, too slow to be conventional aircraft, and in some cases, descended from space to sea level in seconds. Imagine dropping in altitude from over 20,000 meters in mere seconds. Now that's turbulence. Then the objects would hang around for hours. These observations were witnessed for multiple days. Each time they occurred, the crew would view these tiny specks moving irregularly in the distance through their high-powered binoculars on board. Then, on the morning of November the 14th, something extraordinary unfolded. Strike Fighter Squadron 41 took off from the aircraft carrier on a regular training operation when suddenly these mysterious radar tracks were spotted again. Lieutenant Douglas Kurth was instructed to investigate the unknown target approaching from the south. As he made his way to the coordinates, he saw a large disturbance in the water and claims to have seen something submerged just below the surface. He said it reminded him of a submarine or ship below the surface of the ocean. The strike group of ships did include the USS Louisville, a nuclear submarine, and it was in the vicinity, so it could have been the reason for the turbulence in the water, but what was witnessed later makes that idea seem implausible. You see, Kurth was joined by 2 other fighter jets, both containing 2 people each, the lead of which was piloted by Commander David Fravor. Fravor also claimed to have seen the disturbance on the ocean and described it as much larger than a submarine. As Kurth made his way back to the Nimitz, Commander Fravor and his wingman decided to take a closer look. Now, I'm going to show you the clip of Commander Fravor explaining this encounter in his own words in front of Congress, animating the story as he goes.
So before we get into Mr. Fravor and his testimony, one thing I find very interesting with this is that, because I used to watch a lot of Matt Walsh, and Matt Walsh is very pro-alien. And a lot of people thought that like they couldn't tell if he was joking or like if he was being ironic for a while, but I think with pretty much certainty that he is actually pro-alien. And so one thing that he mentioned is that, people, they'll be so anti-government and be like, we can't trust the government, we can't listen to the government. And then they'll eat this up, eat it up with fork and spoon about how, oh, these government, whistleblowers, that they're telling the truth. And he was saying that is actually more evidence to their side because these are whistleblowers and these are not actual government officials, and therefore we can trust them. But I'm like, why would they even allow us to see this if it was legit? Because if the government is so evil, which it is, and so corrupt, then why would they even give us any amount of, I believe that from the top down, pretty much everything that they do, especially under a Democrat administration, is wicked and corrupt. And so I don't give these people, even an inch for the fact of saying like, oh, well, there are these findings, there are these whistleblowers that have come out and, and they're getting like official government meetings, and these aren't press conferences. I forget what the official name of these are. Meetings. And so now all of a sudden, it's like all these whistleblowers were just popping up out of nowhere in like late 2021, early 2022. And so this is supposed to be the new smoking gun as to, oh, well, the government is trying to hide it, but these whistleblowers, they feel so convicted. Let's hear what Mr. Fravor has to say in his own words.
We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet, and the controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some white water off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in a large blue ocean. All four of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down and saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees, nose low, where the tic-tac, or we considered 270 degrees to where, and we went nose low to where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was about 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the whitewater was at, and it was gone also. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute. You can calculate the speed." We returned to Nimitz. We were taking off our gear. We were talking to one of my crews that was getting ready to launch. We mentioned it to them, and they went out and luckily got the video that you see, that 90-second video.
As Commander Fravor's group returned to the aircraft carrier, he briefed the next flight crew that was departing and told them to be on the lookout. The crew heading out was equipped with an advanced targeting, forward-looking infrared camera system, which was controlled by the weapons system operator seated behind the pilot, who was Chad Underwood. Can we just appreciate that name for a second? Chad Underwood, the frat boy to rule all frat boys. Anyway, minutes after departing, Underwood locked onto something on his radar a few tens of kilometers away. Underwood said,
"The part that drew our attention was how the object wasn't behaving within the normal laws of physics."
Now, let's watch the video which supposedly recorded the craft. As you can see, the black and white version of the video is in infrared, and Underwood changes to visible light, revealing the blurry oval object in the distance. He then changes back to infrared and toggles his zoom numerous times. Suddenly, the UFO disappears off the side of the screen. Unfortunately, the target was too far away to be seen with the naked eye, and Underwood nor his pilot made visual contact. Following their encounter, the Naval Strike Group continued detecting anomalous radar tracks for at least 2 more days. Skeptics have tried to explain the footage as being an airplane of some sort, but airplanes can't zip around the sky as if gravity is non-existent. And whilst the witness accounts are so extraordinary that you may assume they're made up, consider that dozens of high-ranking and highly reliable military personnel have corroborated the stories. Commander Fravor, along with other witnesses, also claimed they saw an extended version of the video that was in a higher resolution, but it has never been released. All footage from the events were supposedly erased the evening of the day they were recorded. Numerous witnesses on both ships in the strike group also claim they saw 2 men arrive by helicopter who collected the relevant data before wiping all the tapes and hard drives clean. The witnesses said they never saw anything like it before. Potentially, this could be evidence of a cover-up of some kind. Maybe the government is aware of the...
That's another thing, too, is that when it comes to aliens and the discussion of aliens, that it's always the government trying to cover it up. And it's always that the government is trying to keep these secrets from us, and that the government is lying to us, and the government really knows about the aliens, but the government doesn't want us to know. And it's like, why? You know, have you ever thought about that? Like, why doesn't the government want us to know? Like, what threat would it be to the government if civilians knew about aliens? Like, I've never understood that. You know, like, I can understand why they want us to believe that, you know, white supremacy is still a problem. I can understand why they want us to believe, you know, that we're free, you know, even though we're increasingly not by the year. I can understand why they want us divided, you know, along racial lines and along family lines. You know, I can understand why they want to break up the nuclear family. I can understand why they want kids in public school. I can understand why schools stop teaching how to think instead of what to think. And And so I can understand all that. That all makes sense for the greater scheme of the government because they want to control us. But how does us just knowing about aliens give them any more or less control? I just don't see the parallel in that, because it's not like the aliens are like intergalactic patriots and intergalactic freedom fighters, and the aliens are going to come and try to free us from all man-made government or something like that. Like, I mean, maybe they are. Maybe that's why. But I've never understood how people make that leap, where it's like the government is the one who's keeping the information about the aliens from us. Because it's like, why do they care? What's the big deal? So that's just another thing that I've always thought about, and that this thing is bringing up. And so it's like, how does that correlate?
Of the existence of alien life or technology, but they don't want all of us aware of them for one reason or another. Maybe the government assumes there would be a mass hysteria they would like to avoid, or maybe they're just keeping it a secret so our adversaries are kept in the dark. It could also be the case that these sightings are just of top secret military technology, like drones or aircraft that the government is taking active steps towards keeping under covers. We know they are developing incredible tech, but still, surely gravity-defying Tic Tacs are a step too far. We can only wonder what the flight crews saw that day, but my mind does wonder. All we know is that Commander Fravor estimated the craft to be roughly 12 to 15 meters long and looked like a Tic Tac. Were the Tic Tacs opaque, looking somewhat like the typical UFOs we're used to? Or did the Tic Tacs have cockpits with alien pilots controlling the craft, only zooming off after their operation was foiled? Unfortunately, we will never know. But what we do know is that this wasn't an isolated incident, as I will explain later. The secrets of Area 51. Area 51, the center of practically all alien conspiracies. With near constant rumors of extraterrestrial research taking place at this secret military development and testing base, you have to wonder if there's any truth to them all. If you ask Bob Lazar, then the answer is a big fat yes. See, Bob claimed to have been hired to work at Area 51 in the late 80s for an astonishing reason: to reverse engineer alien spacecraft. Lazar claimed all the way back in 1997 that the captured craft he was reverse engineering ran on an antimatter reactor, which was powered by a stable form of element 115, which wouldn't be officially created by our Earth scientists until 2003, and we can still barely stabilize it. Lazar said the reactor he studied was topped by a sphere the size of a basketball, which emitted a force field capable of repulsing human flesh. He explained that the craft was split into two main levels. The reactor was positioned at the center of the upper level, with an antenna extending to the top, surrounded by 3 gravity amplifiers. He said these functioned as a sort of guide for the gravity wave that forms into a heart shape around the entire craft, narrowing at the bottom. These connected to gravity emitters on the lower level, which can rotate 180 degrees to output an anti-gravity wave, and that the craft would then travel belly first into this distortion field. Basically, according to Bob, flying saucers fly sideways rather than upright, with opposable engines allowing the craft to move in any direction. Not only that, Bob also claimed he read briefing documents describing the historical involvement of Earth for the past 10,000 years with extraterrestrial beings, described as the typical gray aliens that were about child size, of which he had seen cadavers of similar size. To this day, all organizations where Bob claims he worked or studied vehemently denies he was ever there. Yet, George Knapp, an American journalist who investigated Bob's claims, said that Bob displayed a knowledge of the facility that would only be acquired by someone who'd been there. Of course, some claim it's all part of a cover-up. Many even suggest he is a somewhat inexperienced techie, yet the guy built a jet car for fun and has been featured in multiple newspapers for his creations. So he's clearly a distinguished engineer. Bob even claimed they used a specific biometric hand scanner at the base, which measured the length of bones in your hand to authorize access to the base. That the government denied this at first, but decades later, the Department of Defense admitted they did in fact use it at Area 51 in the 80s for the stealth fighter program. And
Okay. And so to take another little break, Jason, he left a comment that I wanted to address. And it says that the only thing I can think of the only reason I can think of them not wanting to let on is that they know that there are things / technology out there that are far more advanced. And it's like, okay, they don't want us to know that there's other life forms and technology that are more advanced. Okay. But why don't they want us to know that? Like, what is the damage? Like, what are the consequences to the government? And I found it hilarious when they pointed out, they were like, oh, well, they're hiding it so that way our enemies can't get a hold of it. I mean, if aliens were real and they came to Earth, they wouldn't just come to America. They wouldn't just come to North America. They would be a problem for everybody. And so to say that, like, oh, the American government is lying to us so they can defeat the Chinese, like, if this was real, like, this would be a problem that everybody would need to actually join in on and figure out. This is the Independence Day. And so I just don't understand the logic behind that. But I mean, hey, that's just me. And so I'm sure this guy is going to get into it in this video because, like I said, this video is almost an hour long. But for me, I would say that the most compelling evidence for aliens are these cadavers that they mentioned. Like, they said that this Bob guy saw cadavers that were child size. And so that to me is like the closest thing to a smoking gun, because it's like, okay, well, maybe they don't have flying saucers. Maybe they don't come from a galaxy far, far away. And maybe they're not super advanced, or, whatever we could say about them. But what is this? Like, what is this that's laying down in front of me right now? I feel like that's the best evidence that they have. And that is always very few and far between that we ever get to see anything like that. But then again, maybe that's because it is the most compelling evidence. I don't know. What do you mean if they exist? I thought you were a firm believer, EAE. I thought that you were dyed in the wool, expecting them. I feel like you were waiting on the aliens to beam down the same way these pre-tribbers are waiting for God to just snatch us all up in the middle of the night. I thought that was you. Are you telling me that you're doubting in your friends, in your extraterrestrial friends now? What's going on?
Bob confirmed the one they declassified matched what he had used. At any time, either of those organizations could have simply said that yes, Bob Lazar worked for them, and they deeply regret to hear of his degenerate mental state or something like that. But no, they still insist they don't know who he is despite all that. Why? It's not to say we know he is telling the complete truth, but there's too many shadowy coincidences here for anyone to be comfortably skeptic. So are there any truth to Bob's claims? Well, he's maintained the same story for over 30 years at this point, and passed lie detector tests on the subject. So maybe? It's worth noting that the guy has been convicted several times of crimes since his testimony, which his critics have used to discredit his story. But who knows? Was Bob telling the truth? Well, some of the sightings coming up might make you think he's telling the truth. Remember I told you that Tic Tac video wasn't an isolated incident? A similar encounter was filmed on the southeastern coast of America in early 2015. Those who recorded it have yet to come forward, but some crewmates and fellow pilots have provided some of the backstory, and it goes like this. Roughly 10 years after the initial Tic Tac sightings in the summer of 2004, a naval strike group led by the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt led training exercises somewhere off the coast of Virginia. The encounter was strikingly similar to the previous one explained. Anomalous radar tracks were spotted and initially dismissed. Gravity-defying hypersonic objects were being detected defying the laws of physics. After double-checking all their equipment, they were certain what they were seeing had to be real. Early interceptions were initially unsuccessful, until one day, two jets no more than a few tens of meters apart narrowly avoided a mid-air collision when something flew right in between them. Although the pilots themselves haven't come forward, fellow F-18 pilot Lieutenant Ryan Graves spoke to one of the pilots who landed and said the experience had visually spooked him. Here's what he had to say about the encounter at the UAP congressional hearing.
During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings. Soon,
All right, so we're going to have to hold that top thought right there because we have a guest. And so, friends, I believe it's a new guest. The username is different, but, anybody can change their username. But so please welcome up Pseudo Silas. How are you this evening?
Good. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I can't complain. I'm trying to get this information. I'm trying to figure out if we're alone or not. So where do you stand on this?
Well, I mean, I don't know for sure if we're alone or not. I mean, I think if you're interested in this, I would recommend Jimmy Akin. Jimmy Akin is a Christian apologist who talks a lot about the possibility of a lot of, claims, extraterrestrial claims, but also, urban legend claims like Bigfoot and stuff like that. And he talks about if those turned out to be true, how that would be compatible with Christian theology. I will say, in terms of just the compatibility of the potential or the potentiality for extraterrestrial life, how that fits in with, say, for example, metaphysics and God's operation of the universe. I would say, again, there's a question as to whether if, aliens exist, whether they exist as rational beings, like human beings exist as rational beings, because,
Right.
There's always the potential that there could be extraterrestrial life, but it could be extraterrestrial life like a plant or a tree, or it could be animate life, but not natural, but not rational life, like a cat or a dog. And so, if that's the case, then I think you can boil down extraterrestrial life to being simply, an aberration of the universe, and in the same way that a plant or a tree or a cat is an aberration of the universe. It doesn't have anything to do with the salvatory experience of a person, but it does have to do ultimately with the material being of a person's existence. And you could say that those are just remnants of that, and those are just exterior remnants of material existence according to God's image and likeness. But I think if aliens do exist from a rational perspective, like human beings exist, if they're, green beings out there saying, "Take me to your leader," then I think that opens a theological question about, baptism and whether they fit into the salvatory, experience. I would think the answer would be no, because ultimately the point of the incarnation was that Jesus was taking human form so as to be compatible, so that his essence would be compatible with the species of people he was trying to atone for. And if he didn't take the form of a little green alien, that would infer that he wasn't taking a form that would be compatible with the essence of being to which he was atoning for. But at the same time, a rational being can comprehend the universe and comprehend the concept of God. So you never know. And, there have been theologians in history that have debated whether animals go to heaven, like St. Francis of Assisi. So you never know.
Right. And that's a good point, because that's kind of what I was touching on earlier, which is like, okay, so let's say they do exist, aliens exist, whatever that means. Where do we put them? So
Right.
are they humanoid? Are they beasts? Are they plants? Are
Right.
they considered fishes? I touched on the verse, 1 Corinthians 15, 39 and 40, that say that, there are celestial bodies and then there are terrestrial bodies.
Right.
And so it's like, do aliens, if aliens were to exist, then they would be classified as a celestial body.
Right.
And so it's just like, it's just like, where do we fit them? Because they can't be people. Because like you said, Jesus became man to fulfill the need for mankind. And so is Jesus going into these other universes and these other galaxies, becoming like them and dying on that cross and doing the whole rigmarole over and over again? So that opens a whole new can of worms.
Right. Well, I mean, if they can think like humans do, and they can comprehend the environment around them, that would infer that they have souls, because, the soul is ultimately the definition of being.
Right.
A cat doesn't have a soul because a cat can't, understand the entire operative, being of the universe. A cat isn't a rational being. A human is a rational being. A human can correspond with God, can respond to God, can obey God. And, St. James, the apostle, does say in James chapter 4, verse 1, a sin, the ultimate identification of a sin is a person who knows something is a sin, and still commits that sin and is
Right.
fully knowledgeable of that sin. That's how he defines it in James 4:17. So if an alien could comprehend God and could comprehend, Jesus Christ, and comprehend the concept of sin, that would seem to imply that they have the capacity to respond to God. But at the same time, that doesn't really correspond with Jesus's essence. So it's definitely interesting. I would lean towards the idea that they do have souls, specifically because of what St. Paul says in Romans chapter 2, verses 6 through 8, where he basically says that, a person's salvation is, ultimately based on their desire. If a person has a desire for Christ, like a burning desire for Christ and a burning desire to follow Christ, that helps their salvation. Whereas if somebody's a lukewarm Christian and they say, well, I believe in Christ, but they don't ultimately, correspond to Christ, and they don't have a positive desire for Christ, at which point they don't have faith corresponding with love, as he says in Galatians chapter 5, verse 6. So, I mean, I think I would lean towards the idea that if an alien had a desire or had desires in the same way that a human does, that a human has a desire to love or, not correspond to Jesus Christ, which would lead me to believe that's the case. Again, that's assuming that an alien is humanoid. If an alien is not a rational being, then it goes out the window. But that would be my 2 cents.
Right. And I see what you're saying. And so, but it makes sense to lean into the perspective of, okay, well, they probably have souls if they're so advanced,
Right.
Because people always want to talk about how, like atheists, they always want to talk about how humans aren't really that special. Whales and elephants and dolphins, they're way smarter than we are. Okay, well, whales, elephants, and dolphins aren't traveling through the galaxy like they claim
Right.
aliens are. And so is that just a lack of mobility? If they had opposable thumbs, would they be doing that? So
Right.
are aliens just, dolphin level intelligence with opposable thumbs?
Right. Right.
So it's like, how far are we going to take this if we're going to say that they're, they don't have souls, if
Right.
they're not humanoid, which I think is a bigger leap to make than to say like, yeah, they're probably human-like, and that's why they are so advanced. That's why they have the capacity to think and to reason. But, like at the end of the day, it's like, who knows?
Sure, sure. Well, it also depends on passions. Do the aliens have passions? Because oftentimes in science fiction, you'll see movies where the aliens are just kind of these robotic, mechanic beings that say, "Take me to your leader." And if an alien is intrinsically designed like that, if that's how an alien's brain is designed, to where that alien doesn't have conscious feelings, maybe they're rational in thought, then I would say they probably don't have souls, because again, if they don't have souls, they don't have passion. And again, the entire point of sanctification is the uplifting of a person's passions. It's the uplifting of a person's passions. And if an alien doesn't have that, I think most likely the conclusion we can come to is that just puts an alien in a separate species that is unknown to the materialistic world, because that would be something that's not quite on the level of being rational like a human, but it also wouldn't be on the same level as, say, a tree or a cat or a dog. It would probably be somebody that is rational, or something that is rational but doesn't have clear and cohesive passions, and an ultimate desire to do good.
Right. That's an interesting point that you bring up about passion and I guess empathy, because the way that aliens are always portrayed is that they are just like, we're just going to come in here and we're going to do whatever.
Right.
And they seem like you said, robotic, and in the same way, whenever it's those robot movies where the robots are taking over, they're like, humans are too impulsive, humans are too feelings based, we just got to do what's best for everybody and kill half the population or something like that. And so that's another thing, is that if they were humanoid, as they would probably need to be so advanced,
Sure.
Do they have empathy? Do they express emotion the way that we do, or is it just all mental?
Right. Because again, one of the concepts, Psalm 37 says that, God is the source of a person's passions. In a way, a passion is kind of like the hook that God kind of uses to try and pull a person out of their intrinsically sinful state. That's kind of like the ultimate thing that a human being corresponds to. Is a human being is born with sin. A human being is born with, a lot of, unfortunately, wrong passions, sinful desires. But ultimately, there is still that remnant of God's image that still exists through a person's passions, and that's how that's how God lifts the person up. If an alien doesn't have that, that's that's a part of their intrinsic, essence. If an alien just walks around saying, "Leader, take me to your leader," then that's just an emotionless part of an alien's essence, which would mean one of two things. Obviously, there's debate as to whether cats and dogs will be in heaven. Somebody like Saint Francis would say that a cat or a dog still bears the image and likeness of God, and thus plays a role in the salvatory story, whereas somebody like Saint Thomas Aquinas would say no, and a cat or a dog, because a cat and a dog is not in the atonement narrative, that means that a cat and a dog is just an aberration of the world, of the material world, and therefore they're not, they have no ontological method of going to heaven. Those are two different perspectives that have never really been fleshed out. But whatever, if that's the case with aliens, I would say whatever, stance you take on that issue, do animals go to heaven? If that's the case with aliens, would probably also apply to aliens as well, whether they're saved or not. I would say if that's the case, we probably shouldn't baptize them, because again, you can't really baptize, and you can't really abuse an ontological process that ultimately lifts up the spirit. But but again, whatever perspective you take, whether you think that, cats and dogs are a part of, bear God's image and likeness and thus go to heaven, or whether you think cats and dogs are a part of, are just a part of a material world and are just aberrations of that fade away. Whatever perspective you take on that matter will probably apply to an alien who has a rational thought, but no discernible passions or desires.
Okay. So I don't want to get too off topic, and I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but just real simply, are you Catholic or are you evangelical?
I'm Catholic.
Okay. And so we have another guest, and once again, he's a favorite around here. So Josh, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I can't believe I woke up to this nightmare. Well, why do you let EAE do this to you? Why?
Josh, don't act like you're not enjoying this.
I am enjoying it, but I'm waiting for the day that EA is held responsible for the debauchery that he creates.
Well, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, apparently, I guess. Hey, would that also mean like don't have faith in such a thing happening?
Yeah. I highly doubt that EAE is ever going to be brought to justice for what he does on the internet.
Got it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, probably agree. Anyways, have we decided to define what an alien is? We got
Pseudo and I, we've been kind of going back and forth about what that would mean and what classification could they rightfully be put in. But do you even believe in aliens, Josh, or are you a denier?
Actually, yes. It's just like when people. So I believe there's actually life forms outside. Now, what those life forms would be, like, say, like bacteria or something like that, probably. If we're talking about like, this advanced civilization of a species that's interested in Earth, probably not. Like that would be more outside the realm of anything I could even comprehend. And even if it was the case, it was true, we got a lot worse problems than whether they exist or not, right? Like things get a little hairier in that area, I guess.
Right.
So, but the idea to think that, living how to explain this? Of the total species that have ever existed, 99% of them are extinct, and that's just on this planet. So putting that in perspective, it would be hard to believe, and it's more like a mathematical possibility. It would be very hard to believe with the amount of planets and stars and galaxies, solars, all of the stuff that's out there. It just would seem a little more implausible to think that, we're the one species that's capable of actually doing anything. So I believe there's stuff out there. I just believe it's way beyond our capability of getting to.
Okay.
Probably even for thousands of years.
Okay. So interesting perspective. I'm glad that everybody's here tonight. And so we're going to push forward. If either of you hear something that you want to touch on, then just put a 1 in the back chat, and I'll pause it so you guys can make comments. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I've got a question.
Soon these encounters became.
Yeah.
So like I sorry, I was gone for 20 minutes, had to take the kid to school. So we got onto this concept of like, oh yeah, I guess we're in the middle of the whole aliens like versus like with the military and stuff like that. Have you guys actually like paid attention, say to like the last 5 years with like fireworks shows? This would be one example. Like some towns, cities in several countries are doing away with fireworks. Apparently they're dangerous. Like we're dumbasses, idiots, and can't like not blow our hands up or something handling explosives. Apparently we're really that dumb. But like, so drones are slowly like replacing fireworks shows.
I'm
The
seeing
only
that.
thing, you notice how the way they fly, right? Like they basically fly, I'd say a little bit faster than like what you would kind of consider to be like, a commercial drone, what you do. But they're also kind of like in sequence. That's what gives the whole like magical feel about a show kind of concept. The only thing that I find interesting about them or unfathomable is how do they hold enough energy to power all those lights at any one given time? So to me, I'm kind of like hopeful about battery technology, but the idea of like something flying in one direction and then immediately changing, say like 90 degrees in another direction, this is highly plausible and been around for quite a while, right? The only thing that is unfathomable currently with like say the tic tac claim and all that stuff is the
Mhm.
amount of speed that's out there. But you do have to ask yourself, right? Because things have always been like the military's always done stuff way before the general public has known about it. So they're
Exactly.
always, that's what they do. And now we have to ask the question of, well, why don't we know about it? Because it's the military. The last thing you would absolutely want to do, one, you'd never want to tell like your own people because, well, they're the biggest big mouths that exists. They're going to go out and talk to another country and say, hey, look how bad we are, right? We can do this kind of thing. They're giving away basically what we call the element of surprise.
Right.
You don't want your enemies to know stuff, and you'll almost do almost any means to protect that information. And one of those means is going to be darn sure don't tell your own people because, well, they're dumb, they're idiots. Apparently, they can't seem to not blow their hands off while handling childish fireworks, right? Definitely can't handle more advanced stuff. Is what it is.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying about how people want to act all dumbfounded with the stuff like, oh, I've never seen anything like this. But then again, I guess that's why they're leaning so heavily right now on the military aspect, because they're like, well, these are high-ranking military officials, so they would know. And it's like not everybody in the military knows everything that's going on in the military. Like that's still not accurate, So
Right.
just because these guys don't know what these are and how they look foreign doesn't mean that nobody in the military knows.
No.
So
So frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
This time, the craft was described as a cube encased by a translucent sphere. Obviously, both pilots must have been incredibly startled, so it's hard to figure out exactly what they saw in such a short space of time. But I've created a few images of the craft for entertainment purposes, and I've added a little extra aliens for fun. They didn't mention seeing them, but I like to think they were there. Anyway, Lieutenant Ryan Graves said this wasn't an isolated incident, and that similar things had been seen by dozens of pilots for several months, and that the object spotted could remain airborne for up to 12 hours at a time. A few months later, in 2015, when the USS Theodore Roosevelt had made its way over by the coast of Florida, during a separate incident, pilots captured another clip that shocked everyone involved.
Dude, there's a going on, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's a thing, it's rotating.
The interesting thing about this clip is that the craft captured seemed to rotate and fly in a fashion somewhat similar to that described by Bob Lazar on its side. The craft even has a heart-like shape, which resembles how Lazar claimed the craft he reverse-engineered warped gravity around them. However, some debunkers claim the rotation seen in the video is an optical illusion caused by the derotation mechanism of the camera. That said, the two pilots themselves failed to recognize it as an image rotation. Surely, if anyone could spot image rotation, They would be the ones who would know what it looks like. Both pilots believe the craft actually rotated. Even Jeremy Corbell, an electro-optical engineer and expert in the ATF LIRE camera system, explained it's not an optical illusion. Besides, if it were an optical illusion, that doesn't explain what the pilots remarked about in the following clip.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
It seems nothing yet has explained how a whole fleet could travel crosswind at that speed. With all that said, it's interesting to hear about the man responsible for making these videos public, Luis Elizondo. He was the head of a secret government-funded effort to investigate UFO sightings known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. In late 2017, he became so disillusioned with the government's efforts that he decided to resign. He claimed that certain individuals within the government are staunchly opposed to UFO research, and that the government is unconcerned about something that could affect national security. Indeed, many military personnel claim these sightings are common but underreported, as individuals fear for their career should they speak out and risk looking like a tinfoil hat wearer at the expense of another promotion. Certainly, there is a stigma around the UFO topic, which is precisely the reason the government now uses UAP instead of UFO to avoid the unwanted association with aliens, spaceships, and probing human backsides. Lieutenant Ryan Graves summarizes perfectly the sentiment around UFO sightings among the U.S. government during his speech to Congress.
My name is Ryan Fobbs Graves, and I'm a former F-18 pilot with a decade of service in the U.S. Navy, including 2 deployments in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Inherent Resolve. I have experienced advanced UAP firsthand, and I'm here to voice the concerns of more than 30 commercial aircrew and military veterans who have confided their similar encounters with me. Today, I would like to highlight 3 critical issues that demand our action. As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. The stigma attached to UAP is real and powerful and challenges national security. It silences commercial pilots who fear professional repercussions, discourages witnesses, and is only compounded by recent government claims questioning the credibility of eyewitness testimony. Parts of our government are aware of more about UAP than they let on, but excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden. Since 2021, all UAP videos are classified as secret or above. This level of secrecy not only impedes our understanding, but fuels speculation and mistrust.
In fact, in 2021, the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a preliminary report on UAPs, and the official findings will chill you to the core. The report looked back on evidence gathered in the last 20 years from U.S. Navy reports and concluded that they basically had no idea what UAPs were. The UAPs could break the sound barrier without producing a sonic boom, move with no discernible means of propulsion, and travel with such speed and maneuverability that would typically destroy any craft. The report accepted that UAP recordings were most likely physical objects, and they are a possible safety issue that could pose a security threat. Ultimately, these individuals are some of the most reliable witnesses you could hope for, and their stories match up. They were joined with one other whistleblower at the congressional hearing, whose story is perhaps even more disturbing. This is former intelligence official David Grush, who dropped some bombshells. Not only did he claim that the U.S. government has had contact with alien species, but also that they've recovered downed spacecraft and the remains of non-human pilots. To make matters even crazier, Grush also claimed that the U.S. has come across actively malevolent alien races, which means we could be in some serious danger. Yikes. But if all this really is true, why the heck haven't we heard about it until now? Well, as you'd probably guessed, Grush blamed the government for orchestrating an elaborate cover-up. Not content with simply pulling the wool over our eyes, he asserted that U.S. agents have actively targeted and came for people who threatened to reveal these secrets in the past. Oh man. So, if Grush ever goes missing, I think we all know where fingers will be pointed. Of course, the US government responded exactly how you'd expect them to, by denying everything. In July of 2023, during the congressional hearing mentioned already, while under oath, he reiterated that there was a massive cover-up going on and that the US government had indeed recovered non-human remains.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview.
Okay, so that's interesting because they touched on this earlier in the video, and so they're bringing it up again. And so this makes me wonder because, like Pseudo and I were saying, like, okay, if there are these creatures that we call aliens, how can we classify them? And how could this man say definitively that these are not humans if they weren't alive? Because there are aspects of humanity that can't you only judge based off of something being alive or not? You know, and so if it's dead, when it by the time you see it, you know, it's just a cadaver, then how exactly could you say with certainty that it's not human? You know, it might not look human, but I mean, isn't that kind of subjective? You know, isn't that kind of up for debate? I mean, I don't know what the exact scientific classification for human is, you know, with all the different criteria. But if something is dead, then wouldn't you have a harder time, especially if you don't know what it is? You know, if it came from outer space, then, you know, does that explicitly exclude it from being human?
No, you could tell whether something was of the human species just with a simple, even a crude DNA test.
Oh, so they would give it a DNA test.
You do a lot. If you found a body of something that was not human, that was doing something like flying an object, or you believe to be a flying an object, you're darn right you would examine that thing. We talk about, like, we have stories about, like, aliens probing us. You find a dead body, right? Like, we're going to be doing much nastier things to that thing than anything we could possibly imagine in Hollywood that they do to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of exploration. My problem with this dude is, one, how do you know how do you know he's doing anything other than just spitting crap out there to, I don't know, could be disinformation, could be just to play the damn game because somebody has to, technically, if you're subpoenaed, you have to show up, technically speaking, right? But he's also not obligated to actually tell the truth either.
And that's something I heard, because I think I've seen clips of this before, because I think this was from 2021 or 2022. That can't be right, because this video is only 10 months old. Yeah, it could be. But anyways, because I think I've seen this clip before. And so, yeah, you know, if they're not, you know, compelled to, you know, tell the truth, you know, if they're not demanded to tell the truth, you know, then
if he's speaking about anything that's possibly classified, he's committing a crime. He might as well just basically like rob a bank with a camera, like, and stream it on Facebook or you know, or on like YouTube while he's doing it, right? Like, it's just a career killer, not to mention whatever else could happen to him. Yes, he cannot disclose classified information in a public hearing. That's why all of the good ones, all of the ones that the nitty gritty, the nasty stuff that we want to know are never public.
Okay, and that's kind of what I was saying, is that, you know, if the government is so hell-bent on lying to us about the existence of aliens, then why would they allow these whistleblowers to come out and speak publicly? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, whistleblowers, right? That's a different, well, it depends. Are they employed, right? Like, once you become a civil, well, I don't know. That's not necessarily true either, right? Like, there are laws that even apply to me that once I retire in, like, I guess it's about 3 years, right? Like, an example would be like search and seizure. I'll never have that right. Even after I retire, never have that right. I would assume, I don't know much about the military side, but I would assume they have similar crap that they have to, stuff that they dealt with or signed their rights away, however you want to describe it, right? I'm assuming that the same would also apply to them.
Right. And were you about to say something, Pseudo?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, just to expand upon his point a little bit, there's a difference between interior essence and exterior being. An interior essence, like we said earlier, involves the soul. It's ultimately an aspect of nature that defines a species. Every species, every living species has an essence. An exterior being would be the physical appearance or attribute of something. So a person's body could be considered their exterior being. So I think in the case of an alien, I think both would call into question from a theological standpoint. Like what he said earlier, in terms of whether an alien is a being or whether it's just a piece of matter. Ultimately both are going to the interior essence, the definition of the interior essence, and the exterior being both play a role in whether they are theologically compatible with the rationality of human beings with God's creation. Because again, like we said earlier, the incarnation, the essential of the incarnation was so that Jesus could be human, God could become human, so as to be compatible physically with the species he was trying to atone for. We don't believe in dualistic anthropology. That's not a Christian concept. The body plays as much role as the soul does. But also, obviously, the interior soul still, plays a role as well, because if a person, if an alien doesn't, if an alien soul doesn't correspond or doesn't seem, or if an alien's essence doesn't seem to correspond with the soul of a human, that would imply the alien doesn't have a soul. But at the same time, if an alien does operate in the same regard as a rational being as a human, if exteriorly the alien's exterior being is so incompatible with humanity that it doesn't even resemble the creation that God became, or the creation of form that God took, then that would, both would, create a giant theological question mark about their role in a salvatory process.
Well, Josh is an atheist, so we're working on that.
Gosh, we got to get you back into Christianity.
Back in, I technically never was. I'm from I'm from a Christian family, like a long history. I'm also a Christian nationalist, if that kind of helps, right? Like I'm almost there. We have the similar goals. We'll put it that way, right? It's just the faith part is missing.
All right. Well, let me introduce you to St. Thomas Aquinas at some point.
Yeah, I am not a fan of Aquinas.
Really?
Yeah, but to be fair, with Aquinas, you pretty much, I believe that you would have to dedicate about 10 years of your life just exploring his writings to be able to even contend with it, right? So like if you wanted to dedicate a reasonable argument against it, you're going to basically spend 10 years of your life having to study it, right? And I do mean really get it. Not to mention, he's actually got a lot of writing out there. It's like he just sat around writing stuff his entire life. There's way too much there.
Yep.
Probably might be one of the reasons why I actually hate the guy, right? You can't have just a one simple doctrine, or maybe like even like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
No, this guy, like he's actually, to be fair, he's got some of his own doctrines. He's also revisited many others prior, right? It just is what it is. I'm just not a fan.
All right. Well, I don't want to get too off topic, but I would look into his 5 proofs, because those are things that don't require 10 years of evidence. They're very simplistic to get into. So I would recommend those, but I don't want to get too off topic because I know this is a show about extraterrestrial life.
Yeah. We can do it one day. Ask Ginny. Might be good.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm I'm bursting, at the seams because I don't know if I'm assuming this is your first time coming over here, Pseudo, to my channel. So I don't have the highest opinion of Catholics. So there's a lot that we could talk about, but like you said, I've got to try to stay on topic. But I would love to have you back for a day when we're talking about more something that we would disagree on, and hearing how we could go from there.
Yep. I think you kind of cut out there for a second.
Oh, I was just
Here, let me fire back, since he's the new guy and I have like a weird rule about like the new guy gets like a day or two of charity kind of concept. So if you can't stand the Catholics, right? Why do you subscribe to a Bible system that originated from like the Church of England, right? It's like, oh, to hell with the Pope, right? We'll just create our own, right? I don't know, right? Seems a little unfair to have this position.
I'm kind of confused right now. I think Jenny cut out there, at least on my end, for a second, so I didn't hear what she was saying.
I was just saying that I don't like, since this is your first time being over here, that if you look through my other videos, then you'll quickly find that I don't have the highest opinion of Catholics. And so there are a lot of things I would like to talk to you about, but that would take the conversation way off from somewhere that is not the point of today's topic.
Sure.
So hopefully you stay around, and then we can talk about something that we could go back and forth about at a later date.
Sure.
All right.
I favor orthodoxy. I find all of you inferior.
I was at an Orthodox monastery today. I toured an Orthodox monastery today, so it's funny you say that.
Oh, that might be interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, let's jump back into our video.
Interview biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And even specified further on his claims of alien races posing a threat.
So at one point you had said that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity. And
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Grush couldn't answer a lot of questions publicly for legal reasons, but did mention he was willing to speak with congressmen privately and reveal more information. Who knows what secrets he has to share? What do you think? Is this the most credible evidence of alien life yet, or just another chancer seeking their 15 minutes of fame? Let me know down in the comments. Now, before I move on, there is one part of Mr. Grush's testimony which is particularly striking. Let's give it a listen.
At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
If true, this would support the statements made by Bob Lazar, as well as the other whistleblowers at the hearing, along with thousands of various incidents recorded over the decades. Now, let's delve into some of the most credible sightings that often go overlooked. Foo Fighters. November 1944. A U.S. fighter plane tore through the night skies above the Rhine Valley on the French-German border. In the gloom, one lieutenant noticed a string of ominous glowing lights off in the distance. Believing them to be German air weapons, they turned to fight. But the lights suddenly disappeared. And this was only the beginning of a long list of unexplainable sightings. Other wartime pilots reported strange luminous orbs, flashing lights, and even an unknown object flying close beside them. They came to call these mysterious objects Foo Fighters, after a line from a popular comic book at the time called Smokey Stover. And yeah, there's also a band with the same name, but I don't think Dave Grohl was hanging around in the 1940s. So what were those Foo Fighters? Well, some believe the soldiers didn't see anything at all and were actually suffering from combat fatigue. In other words, the stress and trauma of the war had affected them so much they'd started hallucinating. But people that knew them said they seemed very level-headed. Others put forward the idea that the Foo Fighters were actually experimental enemy craft. But wouldn't we know by now if that was the answer? Indeed, many people think they really were alien visitors, come to observe and learn about human aircraft. If that's the case, though, why don't we see UFOs following us whenever we go on vacation? Well, think about it. The Second World War was the most destructive conflict in human history. Maybe extraterrestrials heard all the commotion from a galaxy far away and came to find out what the fuss was about. Then, after seeing how stupid we can be, they noped out again and sightings dried up. Can't say I really blame them. Don't worry though, just like and subscribe to Be Amazed for all the knowledge injections you need to impress the aliens when they next come back around. All sorted? Wicked. Let's get back to it. Recess to remember. Kids aren't exactly the most reliable sources. I mean, they say a lot of stupid stuff. But what about when a whole class of kids has the same exact story? And what if all of them insist the story is the truth for nearly 30 years afterwards? Okay, now you have my interest. Back in 1994, a bunch of children attending aerial school outside Rua, Zimbabwe, had the most eventful day imaginable. And no, it wasn't Pizza Friday. During their morning recess, no less than 62 students saw a strange disc-like craft land near the schoolyard. Curious, many of them walked over to investigate. Suddenly, the craft's doors opened, and a humanoid creatures clad in black stepped out before the now terrified children. Then the beings slowly approached. But it seems they came in peace. Rather than attacking, they, wait for it, telepathically beamed messages about the importance of environmentalism into the children's minds before abruptly leaving. Right. While not all students saw the craft that fateful day, many of the kids that did have been adamant about the events that took place ever since. Looking at it from a skeptical mind, it's possible the whole thing was just a case of mass hysteria. That's when a group of people suffer a collective delusion. We aren't entirely sure why this happens, but anxiety is thought to be one of the causes. Just 2 days prior to the incident, there'd been several UFO sightings across southern Africa. This created an atmosphere of anxiety that could have become hysteria, which the kids manifested in an extraterrestrial encounter of their own. I'm not convinced. Some of them even drew pictures, and they have startling similarities between them. And would children really think to work environmentalism into their story? I'm not saying this is aliens, but there's definitely something more than hysteria at play here. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. The Belgian UFO Wave. In Belgium, 1989, a string of UFO sightings took place that would mark the beginning of a tremendous wave of encounters that shocked the world. On a fateful November night, over 30 different groups of people recorded seeing something odd in the skies above them. A strange triangular object with 3 distinct glowing lights beneath it. Spooky, right? Well, for the next 5 or so months, over 2,000 more sightings were reported across the country. Jeez, that's a lot of alien boys. The Belgian government actually got fed up with hearing these reports and, assuming the US were testing some aircraft nearby, got in touch with them to find out. But the Americans told them no such tests were taking place. With little going on, the Belgian government saw only one way to get to the bottom of the situation: getting up close and personal with one of the supposed craft. So, when reports of a sighting came in one March night, jets were scrambled and sent to meet with the enigmatic visitor. Frustratingly, the fighter pilots couldn't see the object itself, but they did just about catch it on radar. The radar blip started moving erratically and jumping great distances before accelerating way beyond a man-made craft's capability and just vanishing. After that, encounters quietly died down. While the Belgian government were quick to dismiss the whole affair, they couldn't provide any compelling alternative explanations. It's possible the sheer gravitas of the initial sightings inspired paranoia among citizens, making them more susceptible to the idea of seeing triangular shapes in the sky. But that doesn't explain the mysterious radar blip. I think the answer is obvious. These were aliens just dropping by for that sweet Belgian chocolate. Skinny Bob.
Okay. Stop the video every few minutes so that, you're less likely to get a strike or what have you. But I'm just so enthralled in this. I'm like, I don't know. I am skeptical. Okay. I stand in the position of a skeptic when it comes to this. And I just feel like, especially because Josh and I were talking a few minutes ago in the back chat. And I'm just like, is this really the best? I mean, did I stumble upon the wrong video? I mean, this said this was the best evidence proving, And so I feel like as I'm watching these, I can clearly see and poke holes in these arguments that they're making. With the one with the children. Okay, that one, seems kind of reliable because how did all the children come up with this convoluted idea of these aliens stopping by and talking about environmentalism? But like they said at the end, because they kind of debunked their own story by saying that like 7 other alien sightings or UFO sightings had been seen in South Africa. And so it could have been mass hysteria. And so, yeah, maybe all the kids that happened to see it, their parents were talking about that incident, or they saw it on the news or what have you. And so they were all thinking about it and they were all talking about it. And so, I don't know a whole lot about mass hysteria. I don't know exactly how that all works, but is that out of the question? Could that not have happened? And so I just feel like, I just leave it. I'm wanting some more. And so we got about 20 minutes left in the video. And so hopefully he's leaving the best for last. This guy, he looks like he's has, some compelling evidence to give us. So let's see what Skinny Bob has to say.
Most phony alien encounters involve off-puttingly grainy photos of faraway spaceships. That's because it'd take a whole lot of cash, time, and skill to convincingly fake an alien up close, which is exactly what makes Skinny Bob such an enigma. No, it's not the name of my estranged nephew. It's an alleged alien. Let me explain. In 2011, a Reddit user named Ivan posted a startling video clip to the website, claiming it was recorded by the KGB. This is Skinny Bob. Crikey. I don't know about you, but I'm seriously creeped out. What exactly are we looking at? Is this real? It certainly looks it, right? According to Ivan, the alien was on a diplomatic mission from the Zeta Reticuli star system and had been sent.
Oh my gosh. Y'all, I'm about to stop the video because honestly, I literally just got done saying how they need to pull out the big guns because the video is coming to a close. Like the video is more than halfway over. And the next thing is a video that was originated by Reddit. Okay. Because now I feel like they're insulting our intelligence at this point. Because honestly, y'all, I cannot with this video anymore. Like now I'm embarrassed that I'm even showing y'all this because I didn't watch this beforehand. I wanted to have my mind blown and my opinions changed in real time. So I saved this video so we could all watch it together. And now they're stooping so low as to go to Reddit for evidence. Folks, I'll leave. I hope you have a great night.
Sent to discuss matters of mutual concern. What exactly those matters were wasn't disclosed.
Silas?
I didn't say anything.
It was me. I was gonna speak.
Oh, that was Josh.
Okay. I want you to know how it feels for us atheists, right? Definitions really matter. Descriptions really matter to us. But just to be fair, like on our side, what we're generally asking is for empirical proof of like faith, right? That's in itself is a problem. That's like, it's requesting to make a thing not exist. It's kind of a little messed up. But mass hysteria, I think it's a scapegoat, to be honest with you. I don't generally believe that people are outright like liars. I think people are very ill descriptive of their experiences. It's kind of more like a fault of communication, a fault of crap. It's like a limitation of our comprehension. I'll give an example from like, say, a religious side. Take like what they consider, I think it's called the miracle Fatima. Portugal, basically a bunch of people. I think there's estimates of 40,000 people basically looking at the sun. I think it's reported that the sun was dancing around, or however it's being described. I usually toss a description out. Problem is you still really can't contend with all of those photos of thousands of people looking at the sun. You know how painful it is to just go outside and look at the sun? I mean, this is literally people doing a thing that's physically painful. Why? Right? Could it be mass hysteria? Sure. What could possibly have caused like that? There's never going to be an answer. There's always going to be questions out there. And I think the questions themselves are useful.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. Like, is this what it feels like to be an atheist and have someone come at you with, oh, that Muhammad rode a donkey in the middle of the night and got into the next town and he was on a flying donkey, and to hear that Joseph Smith, was given the pearl of great price because an angel stopped him. Like, is this what it feels like to hear this stuff? And to be so skeptical and laugh at it?
To be fair, right? It feels like it's exactly like that, but it's not if I'm trying to be generous, it's like I just became a Christian, or I just gained the faith, right? And so they're a little excited, right? It just doesn't do any favors to descriptions or to discussions. That's really what it kind of boils down to. Kind of the same way of, you're pointing at, Reddit releasing a video, or some random guy coming up with a video, which is actually not the origin of that video. But to be fair, right, like that's what it comes across as. But I think it's a little unfair to just dismiss it outright on its face value. I think the discussion itself is more valuable. I just wish that, some people, and the same on my side, right, would keep their dadgum mouth shut until they gain a little bit of experience and then bring something to the discussion. I think that's a more fair and reasonable position for people to have within this framework.
Right. Okay. That's a fair assessment to take. So let's see what the more evidence that Bob is going to give us.
But supposedly what you're seeing is an excerpt from an interview with the being. Visual effects expert Randy Sharp, who worked on the likes of I Am Legend and Watchmen, looked at the footage and gave some startling testimony. According to him, if it was a fake, it would have truly tested the tech available in 2011 and took somebody with a crazy level of skill and knowledge to pull it off. On top of that, It would have cost an arm and a leg, somewhere in the ballpark of $250,000. So, given that nobody has ever claimed ownership of the video or tried to profit from it, such an expensive prank seems illogical. Is it real then? Who knows? I guess we should keep an eye out for Skinny Bob appearing in any more movies. Though, it has been over a decade, so maybe he's more of a fat Bob these days. The Phoenix Lights. Okay, so far we've covered some very widely observed UFO sightings, but nothing can match the sheer number of people that reported seeing what became known as the Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights were two events that happened on the evening of March 13th, 1997, in the skies above Nevada and Arizona. The first event started at around 7:30 p.m., when a witness in Henderson, Nevada, reported seeing an array of glowing orbs in the sky. From there, they slowly made their way across state lines to Phoenix, Arizona, a near 300-mile journey that was seen by thousands upon thousands of people, including actor Kurt Russell. The lights made the shape of a V, with some observers claiming they could faintly see the craft itself through the clouds. Then they passed over the city and disappeared without a trace. What? And it gets weirder. At around 10 p.m., loads of people in Phoenix also reported seeing a separate row of bright lights hovering in the sky. According to the author and renowned UFO skeptic, Robert Schaefer, these lights actually originated from two separate U.S. Air Force training exercises with A-10 jets. One exercise consisted of the planes flying in a triangle formation and another of them firing flares. What a buzzkill. But it makes sense. Case closed, right? Wrong. In 2007, former Arizona governor and witness John Fife Symington III came out to speak on the lights. As a pilot, he claimed to know every aircraft imaginable. And whatever he saw that night was not something he recognized. Not content with just discrediting the official explanation, he also expressed his support for the government to investigate further and answer. So I guess for now, the whole thing is sorry.
Yes.
Oumuamua. Don't you just hate uninvited guests? Well, back in 2017, our solar system got one of the most mysterious uninvited guests imaginable. A mysterious red object somewhere between 300 and 3,000 feet long, Oumuamua by scientists, a Hawaiian word meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. Fitting, because it certainly came from afar, and it was the first object of its kind we've ever seen. Naturally, then, its sudden appearance was very exciting for astronomers, but it was also unnerving. Just what was this thing? Well, it was cigar-shaped and traveled at astounding speeds of up to 55 miles a second, a whopping 20 miles per second faster than the average speed of a comet. But unlike comets, it had no visible tail of space dust behind it. The strange object raced through our solar system for 11 days, then left again, never to return. Curiouser and curiouser. As you might have guessed, many were quick to cry alien. And understandably so. It seemed to defy all explanation. That being said, people have tried to explain it. Some believe Oumuamua was a block of solid hydrogen, while others are sure it was a comet after all, just one with strange, mysterious properties. Scientists say it was a bit of both, a comet filled with hydrogen ice. Remember how much faster it was than ordinary comets? Well, the clever clogs at NASA reckon that when it passed by our sun, the heat released the comet's hydrogen, causing the burst of extra speed. They also say there was no tail because hydrogen doesn't have the momentum to pull space dust behind it. But what do you think? Was Oumuamua really just a big old space rock? Or is all that just smoke and mirrors? I mean, if an alien spaceship did come to our solar system to monitor us, wouldn't our governments want to cover it up to stop mass panic? I'd love to hear your theories in the comments below. Crystal clear. Let's be real. UFO photos almost always look like they've been taken using a toaster. They're either super blurry or don't resemble UFOs at all. With that in mind, I'd like to present you with something absolutely incredible. A UFO photo that actually looks like it was taken using a functioning camera. Whoa! All jokes aside, this is the Calvine photo, widely known as the clearest UFO snap ever taken. Captured in Scotland by two young chefs in 1990, the incredible image shows a strange diamond-shaped object flying in front of a conventional plane. The two chefs sent it to a newspaper, but instead of publishing it, the paper passed the image to the British Ministry of Defense, where it promptly disappeared for 30 long years. Then, in 2020, British academic journalist David Clarke finally tracked it down. After first hearing about the story in 2009, but without the photographic evidence itself, it had captivated him ever since. Eventually, he tracked down a former Royal Air Force officer who'd held on to a print of it. Apparently, the retired officer had been waiting for someone to call him about it for years, so was more than willing to share the pic. And unlike a lot of other UFO sightings, this one can't be easily debunked. Andrew Robinson, senior photography lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, analyzed the photo and concluded that whatever the object is, it's definitely there in front of the camera. So there's no editing trickery going on. The RAF officer that held on to it also said that when the photo was sent in, the witnesses claimed the craft made no noise whatsoever. Weird. Who the witnesses actually are, though, we don't know. Though the names of the original photos should have been released in 2021, British authorities have refused to do so until 2076, citing privacy concerns. Suspicious much? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. The Battle of LA. You remember the Foo Fighters I told you?
Okay. And so what posit, Mavid, he says that the best evidence of aliens is testimonies from people who claim to have seen them. And I don't know. I mean, I would say that is definitively not the best evidence, because at the end of the day, people lie and people are mistaken. People think that they see things that they don't see. And so people are notoriously unreliable. And so I feel like that's one of the worst evidences of aliens, is say that, well, I saw it. I know I saw it. I mean, speaking of like me, I have a video here. It's called Beyond Jordan. I made it a few months ago, so you'd have to kind of search a little bit for it. But yeah, I have a video called Beyond Jordan where I swore up and down that I saw someone that I actually did not see. And, I was making the point that how we think we see things all the time, but in reality, our vision is not as good as we think it is. Our eyes fool us more than we think they do.
Hold up. So now I'm going to demonstrate why EAE is such a jerk for this proposal, because there's something here that probably not many thought about it. Let's think about this for a moment. You're skeptic, or you're being skeptical, and coming up with alternative theories to a reported incident. We'll put it that way, right? I'm clapping for you. I'm proud of you, right? Where is that skepticism within Christian claims, right? Like imagine a guy shows up, says, "Oh, angels talk to me," right? From your perspective, we get the bias, right? I'm to be fair, right? I'm not trying to be offensive with the claim of faith, right? But clearly there's going to be like a bias to it, right?
Yeah.
But where is the skepticism that you would apply to this as to, say, near-death experiences or any of the other comments you've made? Now, that was a rhetorical question. Don't you dare answer that, because I kind of don't agree with EA's intention, I believe, that he's pulling off here. That's what I said. Stay away from us atheists. Dangerous people. Dangerous people. But I just wanted to point that out. Jerk. EAE, still a jerk. Get up on this panel and defend yourself, sir.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah?
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say real quick that EAE made a comment that I will be talking about at the end of the stream, because I think that it perfectly sums up a lot of these sightings and why a lot of people think that they see things that they really don't see. So you can go ahead, Pseudo.
No, sorry. I had an audio problem there.
Oh, okay. So yes, we are coming to a close, and EAE, he's given me some more what he deems to be better evidence from what we're seeing here. So we're going to finish out the video, but then we're also going to look at the things that EAE has mentioned, because we want to leave no stone unturned here, folks. You know, we want to be able to put this to bed tonight here on July 12th of 2024, whether or not definitively aliens exist or not.
Told you about earlier? You know, those strange lights that followed pilots around during the Second World War. Well, that wasn't the only time aliens allegedly came down to investigate us in wartime. Oh no. There was the Battle of Los Angeles. Shortly after joining the war, the USA was still reeling from the Japanese attack on their naval base at Pearl Harbor. The country was on high alert, preparing for the possibility of another strike on U.S. soil. So, when air raid sirens sounded in L.A. County one February night in 1942, troops ran desperately to the anti-aircraft guns and started firing. Soon the sky was filled with smoke, shrapnel, and fire in a defensive barrage that lasted over an hour. Then, silence. But as the sun rose, soldiers realized something very peculiar. There seemed to have been no enemy at all. Absolutely nothing had been shot down. So what happened? Well, some witnesses claimed to have seen a single balloon-like craft in the sky that night, something ufologists are adamant is evidence of extraterrestrial activity. A now iconic photo showing countless searchlights focusing on an unknown object served as fuel for the fire. Could there be something alien amidst all the bright lights? Well, possibly. But it turns out the original image was heavily edited prior to being published in newspapers, so it would be clearer to see in black and white print. What's more, the U.S. Air Force concluded that a series of meteorological air balloons were released over Los Angeles at the time, which probably started the scare. So no aliens this time, although there's always a chance it was a cover-up. The Turkish UFO incident. Many UFO sightings are highly publicized cases that have inspired heated debate over the years. Then you have far lesser known ones, like the Turkish UFO incident. Between 2007 and 2009, 12 different witnesses came forward claiming they'd seen a strange metallic craft in the skies off the coast of northwest Turkey. But we don't have to take their word for it. Plenty of them filmed it. It's shaky as hell, yes, but if we zoom in really close on a separate sighting of the thing, oh, you can definitely see two figures moving around inside. Authorities were quick to try to dismiss the sightings as some kind of elaborate hoax, but that proved very hard to do. Indeed, after some of the shocking footage was received by two separate state-sponsored boards, they came up with nothing, nada. In fact, they were forced to conclude that it was genuine. Now, that's not to say that they believed it was aliens, but they did conclude that the clip wasn't edited, and that the vehicle didn't conform to any known human craft. Holy cow. Honestly, I'm shocked that this one hasn't had more exposure. You can practically see the two pilots inside arguing about whether they should ask for directions. Ant abducted. It was an unassuming night in October of 1957. In an effort to avoid the hot daytime sun, 23-year-old Brazilian Antonio Villas Boas had decided to work in the fields of his farm in the evening. Suddenly, he was distracted from his labor by an ominous red star appearing in the dark sky. It grew bigger and bigger until, he realized it was headed right for him. Antonio watched in horror as the star revealed itself to be some kind of alien spaceship preparing to land. Then he noped right out of there, or at least he tried to. His tractor wouldn't start, so he was forced to flee on foot through the fields. But something was chasing him, and whatever it was too fast. Antonio yelped as he was tackled by several humanoid creatures who subdued him and dragged him onto the ship. While aboard, he was stripped naked and covered in a strange gel. Then the creatures took a blood sample from his chin and left him alone in a locked room filled with noxious gas, which made him feel seriously ill. As he sat there, naked, gooey, and sick on an alien spacecraft, he probably thought this night couldn't get any weirder. He was wrong. Suddenly, a nude female alien entered the room and, seduced him. Yep. One thing led to another, and Antonio wound up doing the nasty with the alien babe. Then after, completing his task, he was given a quick tour of the ship before being dropped off back home. Okay, so that wasn't a fever dream I had last night. It's supposedly a true account as told by Antonio himself. I'm sure you're pretty suspicious of his story, as most were when he first came out with it, but just wait. Antonio was examined by medical professionals shortly after the alleged incident and was found to be suffering from radiation sickness. Now, I'm not saying that means his wild tale is true, but I'm having trouble figuring out how else he could have gotten radiation poisoning. Either way, our spacefaring farmer stuck to the story for the rest of his life until he passed away in 1991. Was old Antonio really a victim of alien abduction, or was it all just a ploy for attention? Now that he's gone, it seems we'll never know for sure.
Are they for real? I mean, honestly, folks, out of all of the evidence that they could have compiled throughout all of humanity across the world from all time, and this story makes the cut just because he happened to have radiation poisoning? Friends, just because aliens have advanced technology doesn't mean that they would even have radiation on them. Because you can have, wouldn't they be so advanced that they would be beyond radiation poisoning, or that they could get it to very low levels? I mean, I thought they were going to say like, oh, he went to the doctor and he had radiation poisoning and he had, residual traces of the goo that he claims was on him, and they swabbed him and it was like goo and sticky stuff that has never been seen on Earth before. And then they were going to like test him to see if he had sex recently. Because you can tell that. Like, you can go to the doctor and the doctor can know whether or not you've been sexually active in the last 24 hours. I mean, like, what? I'm actually blown away. Like, if I tried to present this into a court of law and that was one of my pieces of evidence, like, they would throw it out. Like, this is crazy. I mean, friends, they are grasping at straws. I mean, I don't know how many more examples we have because the video is almost over, but surely, I mean, I just can't. I'm literally blown away right now. Like, the fact that they considered that to be some of the most compelling evidence.
The Baikal Enigma. Lake Baikal. This Russian body of water is the oldest and deepest lake in the world, with a colossal maximum depth of some 5,400 feet. That means 2 to scale replicas of the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, could fit in there stacked on top of each other. Crikey. Naturally then, the lake has inspired countless legends and been the site of an awful lot of alien activity. Many people over the years have reported seeing strange lights, craft, and even mysterious figures skulking around its shoreline. In 2009, one Sergei Konitschkyk and his son stepped outside to watch the sunset over the waters. To their shock, they saw 2 strange glowing orbs rise out of the lake and start floating above it. Thankfully, Sergei managed to snag a picture of these ominous lights before they vanished back under the murky depths. So, whatever they saw, it was definitely real. But sightings don't just take place around the lake, they also happen inside it. In 1982, a squad of Russian military divers reportedly encountered a group of abnormally tall humanoid creatures swimming 160 feet below the surface of Baikal. The group attempted to subdue and capture one of the strange beings, only to be forcefully ejected from the water by them. Now, if you surface too quickly while diving, you'll suffer from decompression sickness, or the bends, a potentially fatal condition caused by the rapid change in pressure. Sure enough, several of the divers passed away shortly after surfacing. Jeez, those aliens don't sound too friendly. Sure, this story could have been just made up, but when combined with Sergei's photo and the countless other tales surrounding the lake, you can't help but think something must be going on over there. MIB. I'm sure you've at least heard of the Men in Black movies. Apart from that awful spin-off, they're a lot of fun. But did you know that they're based on a real-life phenomenon that's downright terrifying? See, when people report extraterrestrial activity, they sometimes get a visit from the real-life MIB. Only they don't get Will Smith knocking on their door. Creepy men clad entirely in black have supposedly tracked down witnesses and either intimidated them into silence or, in some stories, made them outright disappear. Maybe making this video wasn't such a good idea. One particularly strange story occurred in 2009 and was caught on camera. Here you can see two insidious interlopers in a hotel in Ontario, Canada. Two bizarre men dressed in black wandered into the lobby. They had no eyebrows or eyelashes, seemed to be wearing wigs underneath their hats, and were identical in appearance. Then, according to witnesses, the duo began grilling the bellboy to let them see the manager, Shane Sovar. When the bellboy told them that Shane wasn't working, they didn't believe him and began rummaging around as if they owned the place. Whatever they were looking for, it seems they didn't find it. Eventually, the strangers disappeared without a trace and were never heard from again. But why were they there in the first place? Well, Shane had reported seeing a large triangular UFO above Niagara Falls the year before. He'd mostly forgotten the incident, but it seems that not everybody had. Creepy, huh? Most ufologists believe the Men in Black are government agents tasked with suppressing word on alien sightings. But what if it's more than that? No hair of any kind, identical appearances? What if these guys are aliens themselves? Would it not be in their best interests to keep their existence under wraps so they can carry on doing, well, whatever it is they do? No, man, I can see two men in black suits approaching my front door right now. I think that's enough alien evidence for one day. Have you ever had an...
Oh, hold on. That's not what I want. All right, friends. So that's that for right now. Okay. Let's check the poll. Oh my gosh. I'm literally blown away. I mean, I just cannot even believe that I subjected you to that for 50 minutes and 56 seconds. But let's see, because I did a poll. So if you did not vote in the poll, then vote now, because I'm about to check it. And I also did a poll on my Instagram. Okay, I want to mute this now. Very good. And what do we have here? Oh. Okay. And so on my poll on Instagram, I said, are we alone in the universe? And 3 people said no, including Wendy. So I'm really disappointed that Wendy's not here, because I wanted to hear her explain herself as to why she thinks that we're not alone in the universe. But alas, she is out. I think she's probably working out. I think she works out at night now. So Wendy, wherever you are, I hope you're getting some good gains. And then 2 people said no. I mean, said yes, that we are alone in the universe. And then over here, I asked you guys, would you give an alien the gospel? And surprisingly, out of 24 votes, it is in a dead heat. You guys are locked 50-50. So 12 of you would give an alien the gospel, and 12 of you would say, go to hell. And so you guys are so fascinating. You guys kill me. But yes, and so anyways,
Wait,
EAE gave.
wait. No. What's wrong with being speciest?
Oh my goodness.
Well, why are we not spreading the gospel to ants or birds or dogs or cats, right? Well, why are we all of a sudden saying, oh, there's another species, it's special?
Because they're not rational beings.
Ouch, that's kind of a reach, but okay.
Well, I mean, they can't comprehend the universe in the same way a human being does. A human being can respond to God and respond to the universe. An ant can't respond to God or the universe. An ant is an animate being, but it's not a rational being like a human being is a rational being. That's what I was talking about earlier on the show, is in order for an alien to comprehend the gospel, we have to assume that the alien is a rational being with a rational conscious mind in the same way that a human has a rational conscious mind. If it's a bacterial form, then it's not even, it holds no rationality whatsoever. If it's an animate form like a cat or a dog, like some sort of creature, it still doesn't have the capacity to understand the world. If it's robotic, like what you see in a lot of science fiction movies, then it's something in between an animate being and a rational being, in the sense that it has the ability to comprehend the world around it, but ultimately doesn't contain passions. And ultimately, if a person doesn't have passion, a person has no way of responding to grace.
So is that the key phrase or the key word that we're supposed to focus on? Passion?
Well, I would say rationality is number one, but another one is passion. I mean, a human being has passions. Some passions are positive passions and some passions are negative passions, but ultimately the positive passions are ultimately that are naturally implanted in a person's likeness, allow a person to be conscious to grace, which eventually allows a person to have faith in Jesus and thus be dispensed grace.
Sure. Stay after show. I want to have this discussion about the relativity of rationality.
Okay. I do have to get off pretty soon because I got to go help out a family member with something. But I could, if you want, I can leave this on, and if you guys are still on the show in like a couple, I can.
Yeah, sure.
If you don't hear back from me, then I'm probably not. I'm probably gone.
Yeah, if not, we'll drop like emails or something to kind of keep in touch, or Discord.
Sure.
links
Sure. Yeah, no worries.
Something.
Sure.
But you're definitely coming back. You're
yeah,
definitely coming
I
back.
am coming back.
That's what we like to hear around here. All right. And so EAE gave me the recommendation to look up the Fermi paradox. I guess this is supposed to be some more food for thought when it comes to aliens and why we haven't come into contact with them, I suppose, or what have you. And so just going to do a quick overview of this. It says, on a clear night, staring up at the stars induces a sense of simultaneous wonder and insignificance. Humanity finds itself lost amid the vastness of a universe that we are still struggling to understand. Therefore, there are many questions we ask ourselves when looking toward the heavens, but one of them always feels just outside of our grasp. Across all the billions of light years of starry sky above us, could we possibly be the only life? Okay, scientists have explored the question for many years. In 1961, Frank Drake developed this mathematical equation. Okay, I saw this in another video that I watched that I was thinking about bringing up. So this is called the Drake equation. Let's see here. I want to know, what is the Fermi paradox? Okay, even before the Drake equation and the Kardashev scale, many scientists were convinced that there must be a plethora of intelligent civilizations across the galaxy. It wasn't until a lunchtime conversation between astrophysicists that conversation continues to challenge even contemporary mindsets. The story goes that in 1950, Enrico Fermi and his colleagues were discussing the existence of alien life over lunch. The question that Fermi asked the table became infamous in its simplicity. Where is everybody? The room fell silent because, well, nobody had an answer. Originally, the question was meant to attack the idea of interstellar travel, the possibility of which Fermi was confident in. But the question remains, if there were civilizations scattered across the stars by the billions, why haven't we heard from them? It is these questions that the Drake equation and the Kardashev scale, that the true paradox was born. The Milky Way is about 10 billion years old, allegedly, and 100,000 light years across. If aliens had spaceships that could travel at 1% of that speed, the galaxy would have already colonized 1,000 times. Why haven't we heard from any other life? Okay, so this is the Fermi paradox, is why haven't we heard from these other life forms if they are so plentiful? Because it makes sense, from the atheist or the naturalistic worldview that, okay, if we aren't alone, then there should be dozens of us. There should be hundreds of us. We should be all over the place. Either we are special/unique, or we are just extremely commonplace, and we should be stumbling into other life forms that are just as advanced and more advanced all the time. And so there's a problem since we have not. EAE, he asks, do people with Down syndrome have souls? Yeah, everybody has a soul. Everybody's born with a soul. The reason why life begins at conception is because we have souls. And so when we are conceived, and not just we, but I mean like all life begins at conception. And so when something is conceived, that is when the spirit and the soul become a part of it. Now, I don't believe that animals have souls. That's why I don't believe animals go into an afterlife. Animals are basically God's form of artificial intelligence, in my opinion. And so they run off instinct. They run off of what is it? Reflexes and all that stuff. And so they don't have souls. They can't make rational decisions. They can't choose to believe on Christ. And so, yes, that is why people with Down syndrome do have souls, and a person with Down syndrome can get saved. They're not so far gone that they can't understand. Even a small child can understand the gospel and believe. And so, yeah. But now we're getting off topic. So let's go to the second point that you brought up, which is the Drake equation. Okay, so that's touched on in here. Okay, so we don't have to go to that one. And then last one was the dark forest hypothesis. Okay. I feel like that one is probably similar. Because like if you're in a dark forest, then you don't know what's there. Like how we are, and we don't know what's out in the universe. But let's see. My internet is slowing down. It doesn't like when I'm live for too long. Okay, let's see here. Oh, interesting. My husband watched this show called Three Body Problem. I didn't really care for it. I didn't watch it, but apparently what you're talking about was referenced there. Okay, the Fermi paradox is referenced with the dark force theory. Okay, let's just go to Wikipedia. I try to avoid that because I know it's unreliable, but it's usually straightforward. So, hopefully it's halfway right. But here, the dark forest hypothesis is the conjecture that many alien civilizations exist throughout the universe, but they are both silent and hostile, maintaining their undetectability for fear of being destroyed by another hostile and undetected civilization. It is one of many possible explanations of the Fermi paradox, which contrasts the lack of contact with alien life with the potential for such contact. The hypothesis has its name from whoever that is, his novel, The Dark Forest, although the concept predates the novel. Okay, very interesting. And so I guess we could say that we've kind of reached the end of the stream for the most part. My husband has good taste. No, he doesn't. I'm always telling him that he needs to stop watching all that crazy stuff because it's going to fill his mind with junk.
Before you end the show, do you and move off of this? You do understand what the dark forest hypothesis is, like what the claim is, right?
They're saying that these other civilizations are hiding, and that's why we haven't come across them.
Not exactly, right? So it's got several parts to it, but generally think of it like this. Okay, we don't have the ability to travel very far outside the atmosphere, right? Like what are we limited to? To the moon, maybe to Mars, possibly at some given time, right? But we really can't deal much and sustain life through long-term travel. That's
Right.
our limitation. Whether you want to call it a technological limitation, or technically we still have to deal with like birth and gravity, right? So like even if our own lifespan has got its own problems, the ability to travel too far out, we can't even recreate ourselves. We can't give birth in space and survive and maintain what we are as an existence. So these are like the limitations of us. But that's like one part of it, right? The other part of it comes down to the hostility. That's really why that word dark is in there, is because of the hostility. All species that we are aware of will and do subjugate each other when given the opportunity.
Yeah.
An example, take for like lions. Put very few humans without their tools in a cage with lions. It's kind of clear who's going to come on top, right? Of that conflict, if you want to call it that, and then try to just broaden the scale. What if it was the case that like ants had the ability to create tools, something similar to humans, and they just somehow decided, oh, forget humans, we're going to mess them up, right? We're done with their crap. We're done with them stepping on us all the time, right? It's kind of based in that concept. So now if you take like the understanding of our limitations of travel and another species' ability to come here, right? What is going to be the result of that thing? So it's basically, if they have the ability to get here and they have any interest in this rock, we're screwed. We ultimately end up becoming subjugated to an outside species, which is why I kind of implied that whole idea. Why can't we be speciesist? We are already that way. Why are we like, the sharing the gospel? It's really what it's intended for, is you would automatically become an enemy of that thing.
Okay, interesting. I don't know. That's an interesting thought about, we would, be enemies. But I guess you could say, like if the animals that we've domesticated, if they could talk, then I'm sure a lot of them would say, well, no, I don't want to be a pet. I want to be out in the wild. And we wouldn't consider the relationship that humans have with like dogs and cats to be hostile. But of course, that's extremely subjective. And we're the ones that are on the top of that relationship. And so, yeah, we could say like, oh, this is my best friend. And, this is my family member. And I love him. But, if animals could like unionize or like come together.
You don't even have to go to like outside of our species to actually even try to comprehend that. Miss Jenny, what happens if I put you? Okay, I'm a white guy, right? What happens if I take you, Miss Jenny? Let's just say put you in a cage, lock you in the house, right? Like, I don't know, maybe cook, force you to, or I'm sorry, domesticate you to like, cook my dinner, make my bed, right? Like do my laundry, right? Like things like that, right? How would you feel, Miss Jenny? Or how would outsiders see that as? How would they judge that? That's really what it boils down to. Like, we really want to believe we're benevolent when the reality is we're mostly not. We find very trivial things to divide ourselves. And speciation, like that's a major thing that we would definitely divide ourselves on. That's why this hypothesis is technically it's kind of a good one, actually, because it slaps us in the face of like egoism, I guess. It's kind of like a big internal slap of our own ego.
Okay. And it's funny when you bring that up, because basically it's like, eat or be eaten. And people, they don't like that talk anymore, even though that's just the way of the world and that's just how everything is. And so basically what the aliens would be doing here, if they were to come here and take over, is that they would be colonizing. And so I find it so hilarious that, we live in a day and age where colonization is seen as such an evil and seen as such a plight, on the human race, when people, they want to see aliens so bad and they want to meet aliens so bad. But what they would be doing as soon as they got here would be colonizing us. And so it's like these people, they can't flush out a complete thought and realize like, they're not coming here to to spread intergalactic recipes and all just sit around and sing kumbaya. Like there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, folks. And if they're as advanced as science fiction has always told us that they are, then it's not looking good for the human race.
Just to be fair, right? Like if you want to bring it into the theist aspect, what's to say they don't have a god? What's to say that they cannot and would not impose their god on us? They're already more powerful, right? You get kind of limited choices here.
That's a good point. And so, I mean, and that's one of the main things that people subjugate other people for is in the name of religion. And so, why I'm surprised I've never actually heard of a movie like that where aliens come and impose their religion. But yeah, who's to say that wouldn't happen? And so
you wouldn't have a movie like that because there's really only going to be one specific god that's going to get attacked in that movie, right? Like it's basically like a reverse advertisement. It would be anti-Christian movie.
Well, there's a lot of anti-Christian movies. Hollywood hates Christianity.
Yeah, but we're not talking about like you're talking about the person selling the product, right? But the thing that decides whether the product gets consumed is the market base, right? The people, basically, right? And even the grifting Christians, the skin suit Christians, right? They're going to jump on board with like a boycott. Like that would be a really nasty thing it would be a good, from us on the outside, we'd like the social experiment. But from the inside, no, it would absolutely like just slaughter Hollywood. Would work in their best interest. And I do like some of my films, right? So I don't want them, going away. I prefer they not do stupid crap like a film like that because that's just self-destructive.
Interesting. You seem to have a lot of faith in Hollywood. And
I don't have faith. They're definitely dirty, nasty people, right?
Okay,
but I like the product, right? It's like Coca-Cola, soda, sugary foods, like all the nasty stuff that we eat. I like it. It's bad for me. It's going to ultimately result in my death, but I enjoy it. That's simple.
Yeah, but you have faith that they would know better than to do something self-destructive, which I don't have that same level of confidence in them. I think that because I don't know if you ever saw the movie that they did about Noah and Noah's Ark with Demi Moore and Russell Crowe, I believe it was, and
Yeah.
Emma Watson. Did you ever see that?
No, I actually didn't.
Oh my gosh!
I
So
know what
the
you're talking about. I didn't see the film though.
story of Noah is so plain and so commonplace. Like it's one of the most popular Bible stories, you know, in at least America. I'm sure it's one of the most popular in the world. And they bungled it to such a degree that I couldn't even stomach it. I mean, I sat through it, but it was it. And the director of the movie, he explicitly said that he wanted it to be the most biblically inaccurate Bible movie, and kudos to him because it was, and it was just a complete abomination. And
Yeah, but
so
that's a difference in like well, okay, I would say it was inaccurate, right? But that's not what films are supposed to be. They're supposed to be entertaining. They're supposed to draw us in, right? They're not supposed to be like it. If we were so entertained by reality, we wouldn't have films. It's because we're not entertained by the things around us that we see something outside, right? But it still doesn't address the point. Like that was the story of Noah is really just a you could it's let's say it's anti-interpretation, right? It's I don't agree with how it's being depicted, right? The difference with the other type of film would be anti specifically one Abrahamic God, right? Somebody's got to be the villain in there, and that would end up proposing the question of, well, is our God the villain, or is the other alien species? Is that the villain God? That's the problem with it, and that's where it would not be well received and most likely get kind of nasty. Anti-interpretation aside, you're introducing a new God, and at some point within this, the Abrahamic God becomes villainized. Pull that stuff on the street. Try that. Like, I mean, Christians, God bless their soul, right? I mean, I'm trying to be here, right? You can't come at them like that. Like the Christian Crusades, all 11 of them, not very far off, right? Of course, then again, if you go attacking somebody's God, you probably, in that capacity within our own culture, you deserve a butt whooping, right? Like that's just how that is.
I don't know, Josh. I think that you're confusing us with Muslims. Christians are constantly taking verbal abuse and being mocked and berated and just rolling over on our bellies.
I can absolutely show you criminal cases of Christians saying, you know what, I'm not going to take this crap. We got to fight. It happens, right? Like everybody's got their like snapping point. And I would consider the idea of personally or attacking a Christian God to a Christian, right? Like you're not actually attacking God, right? We're really spelling this out. You're actually attacking a person's belief, their God, what they believe, their traditions, their culture. There's no difference than saying, you know what, you're Christian and we got to come up with some kind of like dirty action to go against you, and then or there's no difference between that and just tossing the N-word at black people. Like to me, these are the same things in which there has to be a clear, distinctive line of, I would call it civility. Everybody else calls it respect. I call it civility. It's either we want to fight or we don't.
I guess so, but because I think that if a movie were to attack, you know, the Abrahamic religions, which is a term that I don't care for, I think that it would probably most likely be the Muslims that would jump up and be like, this is unacceptable. You can't show this here. We're not going to let you play this. And it would be them that would get up in arms.
Is it because movies go around depicting them all like, you know, as suicide bombers going, oh, no, boom? Is that why the Muslims specifically?
No, because in real life, Muslims will get elected into political office by liberals and then ban the pride flag because they're literally
Christians get elected.
Muslims stand on business.
Yeah, but Christians get elected into public office too, and sometimes they do some stuff. Of course, I'm cheering them on, right? As a Christian nationalist, I'm definitely in that, you know, in that realm, right? But they also make it into office too, and they kind of sometimes get their way.
Christians are not nearly as effective or zealous as Muslims are. To our, and that's a point for the Muslims, because even in their error, they're extremely zealous. And so, people who are, have the true religion, they should want to, have the attitude.
Christians weren't, that they weren't effective.
I mean, there was a time, but in today,
okay. You mean today,
we've gone soft.
Yeah. Okay. Now the soft part. Now we're in agreement, right?
I just back. What is this conversation about?
Nothing. We're picking on each other.
I heard Muslims and well, I mean, I heard a little bit about Muslims being more effective when elected to political office, and I would generally agree with that. I think since the Great Enlightenment, I think unfortunately a lot of Christians have kind of ceded a lot of influence that they've had. I mean, there's a lot of people who identify as Christian that get elected by liberals into public office, and then they end up taking positions that probably Ginny and I as Christians probably wouldn't agree with, or would feel starkly opposed to from a values-based standpoint, whereas with some with many Muslims stand hard on their principles. And if they're elected by a liberal, they'll get into office and they'll be, very militant about their principles and their values and their beliefs.
Are you saying that a Christian shouldn't be militant about their beliefs?
No, I think a Christian should incorporate their values.
Yeah, no. I'm good. I'm good. No disagreement. None whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Today, you see that more often with a lot of Muslim politicians, which I think is what Ginny was getting at. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what it kind of sounded like she was saying. Whereas a lot of people who identify as Christian today will get elected into public office, and then they'll, govern.
Oh, no. Miss Ginny just holds this weird love-hate relationship with Dearborn, Michigan, right? She's jealous that we can't seem to form our own city like such, right? I'm sorry, Miss Ginny. Did I overreach? I apologize.
I appreciate the zealousness and the zeal that Muslims have, and Christians need to adopt some of that. Because Christians have the truth and Muslims are believing in a lie. And so why on earth are they so excited to, and I'm not saying they all, but why are they so excited to blow themselves up or to, go to war for something that, even though they don't realize it's a lie, but it's a lie. And so, why wouldn't we as Christians who, I thought we were supposed to understand that we had the truth and that we know, that our Redeemer lives and that greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. Why don't we have this attitude of, we should do things? And I think that it's because the Bible teaches that this world is not our home. And so a lot of Christians, they can get really complacent and really lackadaisical when it comes to things that go on here on earth. Because they're like, oh, well, at the end of the day, I'm going to die and I'm going to go to heaven, and then God's going to make everything right. And then we're going to have the new heaven and the new earth. Which is true, but I think that we should want to make here as righteous as we can in the meantime. I don't see anywhere in the Bible that says we shouldn't do that. And so, I just think that the Muslims have the right idea when it comes to okay, well, because they believe in the afterlife, they believe in heaven, but they're adamant about making things just in their view here as well. And so I think that that's good.
Now, I just asked you, I literally just asked you, is your stance the whole, because, they're always being depicted as, la, 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 boom, right? And then you turn around and use that as an example. You're a mean person. You're a mean girl. You're not, that's
it's
okay.
Not life.
You're also saying that less Christians are willing to go la, 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 boom to the other side, right? You might have a point there. I just don't. I don't know what side I fall on. This is why I say the Abrahamic God, and I'm fine with that one.
Well, I don't think that Christians should want to, do boom. I'm not advocating for that because once again, their religion is wrong. So they are zealous, but they go about it in the wrong way. And so that's a misstep in their religion, to say the least. But, there are things that they do that we should be more willing to do. Those parents in predominantly Muslim cities or towns, those parents are active at the school board meetings. Those parents are active in the local government. Those parents are voting. Those parents are being very vocal in what's going on in their municipalities. And why aren't Christians doing that? Why is it that the schools can be teaching about gender theory and critical race theory for years on end, and the parents have no idea, and they're just marching along as if everything's hunky-dory? I mean, I think that Christians should do a mass hiatus from public school in the first place because they have no business putting their children there. But that's for another discussion.
Oh no, that was actually, that one was a perfect one. Actually, I really actually think that was the perfect point.
What do you mean?
Well, like the concept of not putting your children in public school sector. Regardless of what you believe, why would you participate? Why specifically with your children? Why would you participate with a thing that you fundamentally, like on a faith-based, disagree with? That would be the point. If you cannot or are not willing to defend your own children within your faith, you can't have any culture, which technically speaking is the exact reason why the Muslims were able to do what they did, like say in Dearborn, Michigan. You tolerate one thing, floodgates open up and everything becomes tolerant. Pick your poison. What is it worth to you?
Right, exactly. And so, so many Christians, they don't understand that we're in a spiritual battle. And Muslims, they understand that. They think that we're in a physical battle as well, but Christians, they don't understand that we're in a spiritual battle, and the wars and the battlefield, is in places like school. It's in the education and the mental formation of children.
Well,
and so I would never send our children to Babylon, the Babylon school system, which is, what public school is, to be taught by the heathen and to be indoctrinated into their way of life, into their thinking. I'll be sacrificing my children. It's crazy that more Christians don't think like that.
Answer me this, Miss Jenny. Would you be willing to open up your hand, put a little baby powder in the palm of it, right? And then slap, the other side, specifically EAE. Would you be willing to go that far?
I don't know about that.
Gosh, I'm calling you out, EAE. I'm going to catch you. One day I'm going to catch you on a panel.
Oh my goodness. Has he ever been on a panel before?
Yes, I think I've seen him one time on a panel.
But so speaking of EAE, he might have left. I haven't seen him in a few minutes. He might have had to step away for a moment, but he wanted to make sure that I didn't leave the stream without mentioning what my favorite Alien movie is, which is not going to be a very, exciting answer. It's not going to be a very surprising answer, but it's Men in Black, the first one. And it's not because of anything, I just love, like I said at the beginning, aliens is not a topic that I am just so enthralled with and that I just love, and I watch a lot of stuff. So I haven't even watched a lot of alien content. And so for one, that's just one of the only ones I've seen. But two, that is the movie that my husband and I watched when we were on our first date. So yeah, it has sentimental value to me.
it has nothing to do with the modern Christianity view of like, toleration, right? Where there's some of the aliens are cute and cuddly, right? Like we can have their little civilization in a locker, right? Like they're out of the way, not really much of a problem. Of course, yeah, there's the bad one, right? Like that's trying to take over the universe kind of thing, right? But that's because they're independent and individualistic, right? Like they're all welcoming. You couldn't have picked out like the, I don't know, film Independence, right? Like we're on top, kicking their butt. Nope, couldn't do that one. Nope, it's got to be the cute, cuddly alien. God, I'm disappointed, Miss Jenny. I'm very disappointed.
That's why I had to preface is that I've never even seen Independence Day, so I couldn't have suggested that one. I think when it comes to alien movies, I mean, I think the only, like I said, I've seen Men in Black 1, 2. I think I saw 3.
There's a third one. I didn't know that.
There's 4. The fourth one doesn't even have Will Smith in it. Gosh, I mean, there was an animated movie called like Monsters versus Aliens. It was a cartoon movie that came out. It was like a kids movie. I saw that. We're getting to the end of the list. I mean, I don't know. It's not something that I watch a whole lot of. So,
well, I mean, just in your justification, right? Like the cute, cuddly. I mean, you're soon to be mom, so like the cute and cuddly part, right? Like that might actually be of use, right? The whole grab your sword and swing it off at another species, right? Maybe not technically like the best of idea for a mother. So us dads over here, we're gonna hang out with the slaughter them all. You moms, you can stay over there with the cute cuddly one trying to like actually save one and make it your pet. I'm fine as long as it's us subjugating them in some form or another. I'm not fine with the them subjugating us.
Okay.
I'm a speciesist, ma'am. Speciesist.
Oh my goodness. Are we getting some Will Smith slander? Daniel, who is also a dad, he says Predator, so that makes sense. He says anything with Will Smith is automatically disqualified as being the best. Where is this coming from? What is the beef? I mean, I don't like Will Smith anymore, but not because of anything. Like, it's not because of his acting, but it's because he's a cuckold and an embarrassment to husbands and marriage all over the place. And so I think that he's a disgrace. He lets his wife have sex with other men.
I thought it was a hit. Wink, wink.
Yeah, I did bring up the pimp slap, right? But I fired it at EA, right? Okay, so that was my dirty little trick. Okay, I told you to stay away from us atheists. We're evil people. I told you, Miss Jenny.
I mean, you come up here with me. I dropped the link and you decided to make your way over here.
Yeah, but that's because EA is a jerk for bringing a sweet lady into this nasty topic.
Oh my goodness.
He's trying to drag you through the mud. I'm telling you, he's trying to drag you.
I mean, he's convinced that because I have such an unshakable desire for truth and abject and objective reality that I'm eventually going to become an atheist. But I think the exact opposite. I think that if he keeps hanging around here, that he's eventually going to get saved, and he's going to be a soul winner one of these days. So that's my goal.
You know what? Coming from this side of the aisle, I absolutely hope you bring back the Christian Crusades. Hold a sword at his throat, right? Give him a choice, right? I'm pretty sure he's going to select survival, right? I'm almost sure of it, right?
Well, that would be awesome. But look, I got to head out right now, guys. If you want to contact me at some point, I don't know if you have an email or if you want me to provide an email.
Yeah, put it in the back chat and I'll run you down because my email is my name. You won't be able to miss me. I'm Joshua Jones. You can't miss it.
Okay. Do you want me to put it here?
Yeah, private chat. You click on the private chat.
How do I do that?
Here. Tab.
That's where you said I'm sure anytime works earlier. You remember? That was at 8:50. Well, my time.
Oh yeah, that was. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that's the back chat.
Oh, that's the back. Oh, so right here in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Give me a second.
And then my email is in my bio for the channel. So, and that goes for anybody. If anybody listening ever has any questions, ever has any stream ideas, then always feel free to contact me. My email is open to anybody.
Yeah, Miss Jenny needs a security system. She needs
I'm
more
not-
people. She needs more people on her side, right?
Well, I'm not big enough yet to get security. I don't have enough haters yet. I only have a handful, so they're
I'm
pretty novel.
absolutely convinced EAE is a hater, right? Like in the ugliest kind, the sneakiest kind, right?
He's plotting on my downfall. But okay, so earlier
I just put my email there,
Oh,
so
good.
if you're interested. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm actually
Yeah. All right.
emailing you now just to save you as contact.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Well, I gotta head out. Talk to you
Take
guys
care,
later.
man.
Take care.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Thank-
All right. And so I teased this earlier that I had my 3 conclusions as to what I now believe about aliens. Because Daniel, he said that did I get to the part where aliens are demons? And I touched on that, and I said that was how I started off. Before I did the research for this stream, which is that I didn't think there was anything really to this topic. I didn't know how I was going to really be able to talk about it for an extended period of time, because I thought it was just pretty open and shut that aliens are demons, people see them, and that's just the demons playing with them. But what I found is that when it comes to the Bible, we have instances, we have documentation of people hearing from demons, like talking to them, and they can hear them talking, but we don't actually get any instances of them being able to see the alien. I mean, the demon. And so that I thought was very interesting, because what you'll find is that people can see the angels, people can see the good spirits, people can, see the positive spirits, but they can never actually see the demons, which I thought was very interesting. And I mean, if you know an example, then maybe I'm overlooking it. But and I gave the example of when Legion left the man in the cave and they went into the 2,000 pigs. It doesn't say that they saw them do that. It just says that they did that. And we don't. I can't think of any examples where we get an example of a person seeing them. And so the fact that people see aliens made me think more like, okay, maybe there's more to this. And so at the end of the day, this is the official Mrs. Ginny stance on the topic of what I have concluded about aliens as of right now. And so as of right now, my official stance is that there are 3 things that come into play when it comes to alien sightings, alien videos, people believing in aliens. For one, it's confirmation bias. I think that is probably one of the most common answers for this phenomenon, is that people hear about aliens. People have been introduced to the idea of aliens, and so that's why they think that they're seeing them. And the reason why I think that is one of the most compelling reasons is because I was listening to another video earlier about aliens in the Christian perspective, and the man was saying that I don't know what year Jaws came out, in the 70s. And so whatever year Jaws came out, beach attendance went down because people were scared of sharks, and shark sightings went up. But not only did shark sightings go up in beach towns, but they went up in areas that are freshwater, in areas that are above sea level. And so that's impossible, because sharks are not freshwater fish, they're saltwater fish. And so people were just on edge about seeing sharks because they had heard about sharks. And so your mind is going to, be more inclined to seeing things that you're thinking about. Like, one day my husband and I were in the car, and we saw a car that was like a few feet, like maybe like 20 feet away from us. And he was like, that car is a BMW. But the logo on the back was like completely brushed off. And I was like, that's not a BMW. And he was like, yes, it is. And I was like, it doesn't look like it. And he said, the logo's just gone. And I was like, I've never seen a car like that before. I've never seen a car where the logo was completely gone, like completely faded. And he was like, yeah, you have. And I said, no, I haven't. And he was like, that's very common. That's not anything that's unheard of. And so I left because he was dropping me off at my friend's house when we saw that car. And then like 10 minutes later, barely, he sends me a picture that he sees another car with their faded BMW logo on the back, and he's in traffic. And he's like, see, I told you. And so the thing is that like I probably have seen another car with a faded BMW logo, but I just didn't realize it because I wasn't thinking about it. And so when I was thinking about it and he was thinking about it, he saw another one right away because his mind was already in that state of thinking about the faded BMW logo. The same thing happened with
Hey, Miss Jenny?
Yes.
You believe that sharks aren't freshwater?
Not great white sharks. I mean, maybe.
Oh, okay. So just one species of shark doesn't exist within rivers and lakes.
Well, that's what the people were saying. I need to issue a correction.
I just want to let you know, that's
that's true. There are freshwater sharks.
Yeah. Okay.
Aren't Nerf sharks freshwater sharks?
I don't know about Nerf. I know the bull shark is capable of surviving in both salt and freshwater. So you'll see them like in rivers that are attached to the oceans, kind of thing. But there's actually a very specific species that technically it's 3 types of shark. Man, are they ugly, very ugly. But they're exclusively like freshwater.
Interesting. Okay, so
definitely not as big as great whites, right? Like you're definitely like there, right?
So yeah, that was the thing, is that the guy said, I needed to specify, is that he was saying that because that's what Jaws was about great white sharks. And so people were reporting great white sightings in freshwater and in like lakes and rivers. And so obviously the people were like, that's not possible. And so, yeah, that's what it was. They were saying that they saw great whites. And so because their mind was on it, their mind was conjuring up these ideas. And so that's where it goes back to the example that we saw in the video of the children in South Africa who claimed that they saw aliens when alien sightings were popular at the time. So confirmation bias is probably the number one reason why people claim that they see aliens when they don't. Number 2 is paranoia/hysteria. And this is different because confirmation bias is something where a perfectly rational person could fall into confirmation bias, while paranoia/hysteria is for people who are crazy. And so what you'll find is like there's a phenomenon with people who are drug addicts, people who are like crack addicts, meth heads, is that they'll think that there's like bugs on them, or like they'll think that there's bugs in their skin, or like there's bugs on their clothing. And I forget what the official name of it is. It's like pest or something. But yeah, there's a phenomenon with people who do drugs who think that they have bugs on them, and they're like clawing at their flesh, scratching themselves until they're red and bleeding, and taking excessive showers, and they just can't. And they think that there's bugs in their bed. They think there's bugs in their house, and there's no bugs. They're just crazy. They're just drug addicts. And so who's to say that half of these sightings, or a percentage of these sightings are not just from people who are on drugs and think that they're seeing things that they're not, or people who are not on drugs who are just mentally unwell and think that they're seeing things that they're not. And so I think that plays a part into it too. To say that has no factor into it, I think is ridiculous. And then the last one is demons.
Hold up. Miss Jenny, I think you provided like within the confirmation bias, I think you've given great examples, right? Like that would be a very rational thing to do, to say, oh, somebody has said a thing, right? And then you try to go down like a list of possibilities, right? It's actually even part of the scientific method. Like, this is actually a real thing. So I got to ask, what is your confirmation bias?
Well, I think that everybody has confirmation bias to a certain degree. So I saved this message, this comment that EAE left. And I think this is really kind of the backing of confirmation bias at the end of the day, which is that he said here that this was in the context of him saying that he doesn't necessarily believe in aliens. He didn't say that definitively, but what he's saying is that he likes the idea of aliens. And so he says here that he wants to believe in aliens. And
Okay.
I think that a lot of people,
But let's ask you, do you hold that same position in faith?
When it comes to Christianity?
Yeah, oh God, I mean, whatever label you want to put on it, I'm fine with, whatever definition you want to use.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably true. I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay. Okay. No, that's fair. I can't push back against that, right? Like that's an absolutely fair position to hold.
So yeah, and I've thought about that because I've thought about, like, is there, because I mean, I feel like it would be, you would know if someone has confirmation bias if there is no evidence that could be presented to them that would make them change their mind. And so there are a lot of people out here who believe in aliens, and there's actually just no evidence that you could present to them to show them that there are no aliens. They're gonna believe regardless.
Do you run into a lot of other people like that? Like you go out and evangelize. You go out and talk to people. I think I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of you doing it. Do you run into this problem? Like, with people with like confirmation bias that might push back against your position, thinking that you have confirmation bias?
I don't know if I would call it confirmation bias in that regard, but yeah, I do encounter a lot of people.
Wait, what's the distinction? What's the distinction between yours and theirs?
Well, because there's a difference between confirmation bias and being willfully ignorant, or just being completely closed off to an idea. So confirmation bias is that you see something or you encounter something that could benefit your position, and that's where you run with. And so it's like, well, this could be an alien, so therefore it is an alien. You see what I'm saying? And so that's one thing versus me showing you something that is definitively not an alien and you saying, yeah, it is anyway. I'm not going to listen to that. And so I encounter that more when I talk to people, where it's like, hey, do you think that we should baptize babies? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, the Bible explicitly says that baptism is to come after a profession of faith. And they're like, no, it doesn't say that. You're wrong. I'm not going to listen to you. And that's not confirmation bias. That's just choosing to ignore what you see in front of you. And so those are slightly different.
Seriously? Really?
Yeah, because it's not a confirmation. It's like the opposite. It's like rejection bias, I guess you could say.
Okay. So what's the difference between God done it and alien done it? And we don't know, or nobody done it. What's the difference?
Well, that's the thing, is that I think it was last week that we talked about it, where is that, because I don't believe that my faith is blind. I believe that I have very good reason to be a Christian. I have very good reason to believe in God. And I think that there's a lot, and I know for a fact that there's a lot more evidence of God than there is of aliens. And so I think that if anybody were to get dogmatic and be...
I got to ask, are there any videos or photographs, even if they might be fake, of God?
No, there's none.
Oh, okay. All right. Is it the lack of evidence that seems to be more important than the availability of evidence? Even if it's fake. I mean, just to be fair. Because I'm not picking the alien side. I'm trying to understand the distinction. How do you differentiate between one and the other?
Right. And so I think that the difference is that there is good reason to believe in a God. Whether or not that lands you on the God of the Bible, would require more faith. But the idea that there is a God is blatant. It's obvious. I mean, it's all around you. So I mean, I feel like being an atheist is indefensible.
You're using that word obvious very like it's doing a lot of heavy lifting here in this moment.
Yeah, because it's true.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
I mean,
I got
because
it.
looking at the statistical probability of life being able to be sustained on Earth, where we are in the universe, the fact that the sun is X amount of miles away from the Earth.
Let me try to let's hammer this out a little bit, right? There's this thing called oxygen, right?
Okay.
None of us absolutely 100% know. Actually, you know, I'd say that there's really no real way to provide proof, right? It's just a word that we use on this thing that is all around us, right? But people breathe. People, you know, I mean, well, most people believe. There's a few people that's kind of a little questionable, but it's this thing that's all around us, you know. The same excuse of like, look at the trees, look at the sky. It's stupid, that weird thing, right? The oxygen, but you can't really look around and see it. Maybe if a fan is on and it's blowing against a piece of paper, maybe you might be able to witness the results of something. Still not going to speak to the oxygen. It's just something, right? And then somebody comes along and says, hey, oxygen done it, or gas, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, right? Would that be obvious?
Well, if you're not going to get hung up on wording, then yeah, you know, because at the end of the day, there is something that we breathe in that sustains our lives, and that if we were to stop doing it, we would die. And so whether or not that is the word that we use as oxygen or it's something else, that thing still exists.
Okay, so it's really the description that matters.
Yes.
Not the definition, but the description. That's really the most important thing. Okay.
Yeah. So the idea of God is obvious because of the idea of a creator.
Because everything that we kind of like interact with has been created, thus a creator. Is that what you're saying? Like it would just seem obvious because it seems natural, or natural's the wrong word. It would seem along the lines of everything else that we've experienced. Is that what you're saying? Or is that how you're describing it?
Yeah, the fact that our observable reality is created or designed proves that there must be a designer.
Why did you have to add the word proof in there, right? See, why the extra? Why the extra?
Because in real science, not this you want masquerading as science.
Yeah, you want a term. You want the scientific term of evidence. Yes, it would be.
I'm saying in the scientific term of proof and like hard like laws, like the laws that we have in the scientific community. You know, like the laws of gravity or like the laws of physics, things like that. You know, in actual testable. You know, you can actually go into a lab and perform, you know, a test on it, you know, in that version of science, the real science, not that fake science. That is really
I get what you're saying. I'm just, you're not doing yourself favors with those examples. I got to work with you. I got to work with you here.
When you use real science, you come to the fact that there is design in our universe. And so if everything that we see has been designed, then it only makes sense that everything else had to be there is a ultimate, you know, end of the line where it comes to design. So like my child was designed by, my child was created. I was created. My mother was created. Her mother was created. Who was the ultimate creator? And whether or not you call that God.
Why is a planet, moon, sun, whatever, if you look up, why does everything appear to be round? Is it saying designed that way to be based on like whatever God decided, or is it designed to be that way based on the concept of, well, just how matter interacts? It forms its own gravity as it collects together.
I would say that things are round in our universe because that's the way that God designed it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the God is when you mean by design, you're just asserting that you're asserting the designer, not the process by which it comes to be.
Yeah, I would just have to assert the designer because we don't know exactly how things were designed, but we know that they were designed.
Ouch. You do realize that that's what science deals with, is the how part, like the functionality part of it. That's what science really comes down to be. It doesn't make claims, it provides explanations. Sometimes it very much does get it wrong, right? Like that is actually a thing. Sometimes it's inaccurate, right? But you're skipping over that step and just asserting it because of another step prior, right?
Well, in well, I feel like you're making a reasonable assumption to assume that the stuff that we can't see, like we weren't able to see the sun be designed or the sun be created, but we can see millions of other things in our world that are created. And so we have enough proof, beyond a reasonable doubt to assume that, okay, well, because all these other things that we can see in nature were designed and created, that the sun and the moon and the universe as a whole was also that way.
Is it the assumption that, like, are you stating that there's an assumption that whatever description or explanation that science is providing, right? You're saying that there was a step before that, which I tend to agree with you, right? As a blanket statement, there was something before that, right? Because there was something that caused the elements to be in the same remotely close region for them to actually even like gather together to form mass, right? So there's
Yeah.
different steps that go there. And you're saying that basically there's a step before that, and then a step before that, and a step before that. So you would basically be using, like, what do they call I think is usually defined as is the original, the first cause.
Yeah, the unmoved mover. I've heard it
Okay.
referred to as that, or yeah.
Sure. Okay. So the question would be then, what caused that?
Well, that's the thing, is that there has to be an originator. And so God, he exists outside of time. He exists outside of the universe. And so he has always
That's where
existed.
you've lost us, because the
Well, yeah,
logic part.
because I can't prove that in a laboratory. That's where
Oh,
the faith comes in.
okay. See. Hence the concept of the proof part, right? Why that word kind of have like a little bit of issues, right? Right. I get the idea of faith, right? Like I have
Right.
no qualms with this. I actually fundamentally would argue for the utility that comes with faith. It's highly useful, right? Whether to benefit or detriment, probably an argument that secularist and actually even myself, because I'm on the Christian side here, right? But it's the descriptive part that we're using here kind of tends to get kind of a little problematic within description parts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like there are some, Christian apologists or Christian advocates who fall into the trap of trying to say that I can, beyond a reasonable doubt, um, you know, defend the existence or prove the existence of God with science. And I don't agree to that. I don't think that that's possible, because at the end of the day, without faith, it is impossible to please him. And so
Okay.
there has to be eventually, no matter how far you go back, like we were just saying, like, yeah, I mean, I believe that in our observable world, that there's a lot of evidence for that, design, creation, but eventually you're going to have to go far back enough to where you are going to have to take that leap of faith, and you cannot go into a laboratory. You cannot go and break out the beakers and prove God in the scientific method. You can't do that. You can't bridge that gap. There will be faith that comes in.
Got it. Okay. So, and I think that's actually a lot more of a fair position. So let me give I'm going to say this. I'll actually throw this one out here. Let me extend an olive branch from my side of the aisle, that no reasonable person, no person that walks the face of this earth especially like on the atheistic side, can actually make the claim that such a God doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Thus, we're kind of stuck here with the concept of hammering it out, which as I stated before, originally in the post is the question seems to be more important than the origin or even kind of the conclusion. At least if you get into the conclusion part, need a goal, like need that goal hammered out as to what is the clear defined goal that we're trying to get to. So like you and I have very similar paths. So that would be like one of the goal. Of course, might be the ugly side of it, but right, they're not identical. You have a different reason for that goal than I have a different reason for that same or similar goal. And I think that's probably maybe the more important part. Because I can't will myself to have faith. I can't. I mean, I guess I could lie and say it. That would be disingenuous. But I don't. I think people on my side of the idea or the aisle really need to kind of have an internal critique of their own concept of faith, trying to wrestle with that thing. That's, I think, on my side, this is, I think, our problem. I just don't know how to contend with it.
Yes, absolutely. And that was something that I had wanted to go back on the line and talk about, but that's not going to happen.
No, if you're talking about who I think you're talking about, you had best never call in, because you and I will fight then.
No, I can't. I mean, I might be able to, but I wouldn't call in because they strike my channel, and so I think those people are despicable. But it's not just him; it's a whole channel. He's just one of the hosts on it. But
you're going after the one of the wingers, the ones that are grifting on top of him.
The what?
One of the grifters. It's basically like one of the. You know what? It's kind of a really pro LGBT community. I think maybe if you can find your way to sneak your way into one of those topics, might actually be a little bit more worthwhile, because I think that if you sit down with enough thought, you could probably find some both sociological evidence to indicate, harm that they're asking for and things like that. Given enough patience, I think you could actually push back on some of the policies that community has come up with.
Yeah, Andrew Wilson famously just
made him walk off the panel because of that. Yep.
Yeah, he like short circuited and just completely crashed out and before the debate even got started. I mean, it was glorious, and I don't even like Andrew Wilson, so I was just like, man, this is great. But yeah, but I mean, going back to the original point is that, yeah, I would like to talk to more atheists about that, because at the end of the day, so many atheists have that, that stench of smugness about them, being that, oh, you poor, ignorant, religious people, you rely on faith when I do everything by reason and logic and statistics. And it's like, no, actually, because at the end of the day, whether or not you make the leap to God or away from God to say that there is no God or that there is a God, that requires faith, because you did not go into the lab and the calculator did not, press out the fact that there is no God. So you just take the evidence that you deem to have, and you drew the conclusion, you had a hypothesis. And so you've drawn this conclusion that there is no God based off of, what you understand as evidence. And so I'm doing the same thing with what I understand as evidence, and I'm coming to the conclusion that there is a God. And so to say that one person is walking by faith and the other one is walking by logic and reason is asinine. And
I strongly agree. To be fair, right? I also think that was, I think that was the point that, what was the other panelist's name? Pseudo, something like that?
Yeah, Pseudo Silas.
Okay. Oh, that was Pseudo Silas. I don't know if I've talked to him before. The answer is, yeah, I think when he was talking about passion, I actually think that's what he was like. That was the lines of thought he was going down. I think that's why I wanted to have the conversation, make it a little bit more clear. But yeah, yeah, you and I actually even fundamentally don't disagree. Kind of weird, isn't it?
It is. It's interesting. Yep. And that's the kind of thing that you can have when you talk to people who are honest.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
at the end
true.
of the day, I'm just all about the truth. And it sounds like you're about the truth. And so
No, no, no,
unfortunately,
ma'am. No, no, ma'am. No, no, no. See, normally, kind of agree with you. I'm not about the debauchery, right? But I am definitely about weaponized information, right? It's just, I don't see you as like the social enemy. There's more like other people that like, if there was like a list of enemies, like that things that I think that people should be like attacking in society,
mhm,
and Christianity was on that list, it would be very close to the bottom of that list. Like it wouldn't even
I get you.
register. So if I'm like at the top 10, right? Like, yeah, yeah. So honesty, very, very, I'm highly selective. I think people serve purpose, which I think as Christians would probably tend to align with, because they would be doing God's purpose. Well, all of us would be scripturally based, right? I just believe in that concept, right? So I have a goal that kind of goes beyond, as a Christian nationalist, would be even extreme by biblical standards, meaning that I would actually add something to it. And I am sincere enough to recognize that, hey, look, I'm on that side, right? But this position here, this thing that I'm doing, is not actually part of a biblical prescription of going about doing a thing. So I'm
Mm,
just open about that, unless you're the enemy that I'm attacking, in which case I don't care what that person thinks. It's just destructive mode. It's like, I
I
don't care what you think. I want to stop you from thinking at all, thus die. Sorry. Delete that word. That word. That was the word I wanted to use. Yeah, yeah.
right. Okay. So you heard it here first, folks. That the atheist is willing to go by, the ends justify the means when it comes to Christian nationalism, according to Joshua the atheist.
Very much so. Very much so.
Oh man. But anyways, I am wrapping up the show now. So do you have any final thoughts?
Yes. EAE's a jerk for pushing this topic on you. You need to stay away from the atheists. Really bad, bad, bad people, right? Like really bad, right? You need better association. If I manage to ever figure out what your husband's phone number is, I'm going to call him. I'm going to be like, look, your old lady's talking to this guy named EAE, right? Like causing some stuff here, right? We got to deal with this, sir.
Oh my goodness. Well, you have a good night, Joshua.
Take care, Miss Jenny.
Oh my goodness. So in closing, I touched on the first two. So yeah, the reason why I believe that we have the phenomenon of alien sightings, UFO sightings, is because of one of three, which is that confirmation bias, psychosis slash drug induced psychosis, and then lastly is I believe it is the demons. And so I think that they play the role when it's not things that are physically seen. I think that that's more so when it comes to things like, I don't know, like when people say like, oh, I was on ham radio. I was on the ham radio and I heard this weird noise and I think it was an alien. I think that's probably the demons playing with them. But when it comes to things that are caught on camera, and another aspect of it is that the government is just lying to you. That the government claims we've never seen this before. We have no evidence that technology can be this advanced. They're just lying to you, okay? And they do have that advanced technology and they're just testing it out and playing with it and people see it and then they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so that's another very, very common and very easily explainable reason for these alien sightings. And so, yeah, so really, I guess it comes down to four: confirmation bias, psychosis, demons, and the lying government. Okay. And so, yeah, there's a lot there. And so, but, aliens are such a, fascinating phenomenon that, it comes down to a few reasons. It's not just quite as open and shut as I thought at the beginning. And so I am so glad that I have this platform. And every week when I do my deep dive into the topic that I'm going to talk about, it forces me to actually go in and really hunt and search for what I'm talking about. And I think I understand a topic. I think I know a topic. And then I really search into it and I'm like, there's more to this than meets the eye. And so these are always a good time. And so I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week, but you just come back here at 8:00 like you're supposed to, and it'll be something good. And so I want to give a thanks to our guests that came on, Pseudo, Silas, and Josh. And then Savage Red was here for like a hot second, but then he had to go. But so he didn't get to say anything, but he was here. He was here. And so, yes, friends, I started up the new stream that's on Wednesdays. That is Every Word Wednesdays. So if you missed this past week's stream, we talked about the Son of God. We went through every time that phrase appears in the Bible and got to the bottom of what that phrase means, who that is, and what he is. And so if you ever have, if you've been wondering about that term, what it means to be the Son of God, if you've had some Muslims come to your door and tell you what that word means, then go to the Bible and let the Bible tell you what that word means. And this Wednesday, we'll be doing another one. I'm not sure what phrase I'll be doing yet. CT, you are the definition of Johnny come lately, sir. The show is closing up now. So yeah, I haven't had dinner. So as much as I would love, and I do mean that, I would love to bring you up, I gotta go to bed. I see Josh said something about an antinatalist. That reminds me, EAE asked me, did the antinatalist girl reach out to me yet? No, I don't think she has yet. I hope she does. Because I really do want to talk to her. But I don't know her information. I went in her bio. I didn't see an email or an Instagram account. So I don't know. I just left a message under the video that you sent me. So I don't know. Hopefully she reaches out to me. Go stalk her email. What is her email? I gotta get it. Because I would love to have her on. Because in the video that I watched of her points were so easily debunkable. Anyway, a person who's an antinatalist is someone who doesn't believe in having children. But she also says she's anti-suicide and she's anti-death penalty, but she doesn't see the ending of the human race as a net negative. She sees it as neutral. I thought that was crazy. But anyways, and so yes, friends, that is the show. Oh my gosh, how could I forget? I have to do our weekly bump date, and so I'm having so much discomfort lately. Like I've moved away from like morning sickness and like nausea to just like general discomfort because my stomach is growing. So, yep, I am 19 weeks. I am almost halfway because a full, I mean, you're kind of technically considered full term at like 38 weeks or 37 weeks, but a pregnancy is supposed to be, a full 40 weeks, which is why pregnancy is actually 10 months, not 9 months. But most women don't know that they're pregnant during the first 4 weeks. So that's why they say it's 9 months. But technically pregnancy is 10 months, 40 weeks, and I am 19. So next week I will be halfway. And so, yes, friends, it's just marching right along. I mean, baby Jones is going to be here before you know it. So that is how things are progressing. And if you missed it, then, oh my gosh. If you missed it, then I said I'm having a boy. I need to put the registry in my description. I always forget to do that.
Are you going to name it? Are you going to name it Joshua?
Goodbye, Joshua. You have a good night. Gosh. But anyways, so I'm gonna get the registry out to everybody who would like to contribute. I already had someone contribute, so I appreciate that. But EAE has the registry, I think, or I can send it to him again because he said he was sending it out to people. But yes, no, CT, aliens don't go to hell because aliens are not technically real. And so there's that. But anyways, I will talk to you guys Wednesday. So be sure to be back here on Wednesday at 12 Eastern Standard Time to hear Every Word Wednesdays. Good night.